About to opt in to Monerotopia, a show for the Monero community where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
Alrighty, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going, man?
It's going.
I know you're juggling a lot, but
Yeah,
you're making progress.
yeah.
You're building. We got a big show today. Big show. We got Bawdy as usual, going to come on, give us a price report, and then we have Cuban Warrior, who's going to come on and give us an update on his Kuno. He's the guy that's building the Monero Mesh Networks down in Cuba. So he'll come on, he'll present. I think he's looking to raise more money. So we have some questions for him. We obviously want to make sure that's all legit and copacetic. So we got that. What else we got? The usual stuff, the news, viewers on stage. Guys, if you're tuning in for the first time, we appreciate it. Everybody, if you can like and share this, let's try to get as many people as we can. Spread the word. And let's kick it off, man. Let's do it.
All right, let's do that price report.
The Monerotopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Local Monero. Avoid using KYC exchanges. Buy and sell Monero directly for fiat, peer-to-peer.
Good morning.
Yo, buddy.
Buddy, good morning, man.
How you guys doing?
Good. What's new?
Oh, not too much. You know, Christmas is coming up. Gonna fly back to the States. Got to go through TSA. It's not gay if it's TSA. I always hate coming back to the States, honestly. Just like for that one reason, just because you have to like pass through all that.
Yeah, right. It's like you're treated like a criminal.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude, when I went to Monerotopia earlier this year, every time I went through like security, whether it's from the US side or from coming back in the Mexico side, their airport, they had to stop me and take everything out of my backpack. Because something was setting off some weird like alarm, and then
Really?
just like go through everything in my backpack, and it was super annoying. I think it had to do with my laptop because I have a framework and it has a lot of like extra like magnets and stuff, but I'm not 100% sure.
yeah, you're just on a list, man.
Yeah, sure.
Apparently, there's like some code where if they don't like you to buy tickets at the last second and only one way. So like if you buy a last minute ticket one way, you'll occasionally pop for, I think it's SSSS. Kind of interesting, those particular letters. But yeah, like
it's like the no-fly list, right?
It's not that you're like necessarily on a no-fly list, but you're like, it means that you're either that you're on a list, or it means that you got popped for like extra screening, and then you have to go through all this crap, and you have to go through I don't know, you got to go like to the counter, and then it could take a few hours, and I don't know, it's something like that. It's something weird, and a lot of people have complained about that happening to them. Maybe not a lot, but I was reading about that the other day.
Now, do you go through like the machine where it scans you, or do you opt out and do the
No, I always opt out.
You do? Really?
Yeah. One time I even told him, I was like, I'll take the what did I say? I'll take the sexual molestation instead of the cancer today. They didn't like that. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, I'll opt for the sexual molestation instead of cancer today. You know, at least one is just quick thing, and then it's done. Cancer, that shit eats you away for years. And he's like, bro, you can't talk like that here. I was like, it's a free country, dude. I can talk how I want. Like, so then he's like,
which you can
well,
do
that's
that.
your attitude. We're just not going to help you at all. So he walked away. I was like, you were bound by the law to perform this job. You can't just walk away like that.
Right.
But of course he did, right?
Even he
So he
doesn't
went
like
away, and I was kind of like,
sexually molesting people. He was like,
Where was that? Was that?
this was Houston,
that was-
IH.
I didn't know
Oh.
you could opt out of the 3D scanning X-ray radiation machine.
I've
Oh,
opted
yeah,
out. I've opted out, but yeah, it took forever, and I give like you, but not as much, but a little bit of an attitude as I did it. Obviously, saying some things, but wow, that's hilarious. So he also opted out. So you had to wait for somebody else to come up.
No, I kept telling the other guys around there, I was like, hey, that guy over there, you see that big fat guy over there? He's like refusing to do his job. And I'm pretty sure that like that's contrary to the law. He has to do this job. I didn't insult him. I didn't even raise my voice. I'm just like joking around. And so eventually he came back and he's like, so are you done being smart? And I was like, it's like, listen, dude, I'll just keep my mouth shut. All right, but let's do this. So usually what I'll do, like that was the only time that I really like was kind of abrasive about it. But usually what I'll do is I'll like be like, I've got you right now. Like you're my little, I don't think I say prisoner, but I'll be like, yeah, you have to sit here and listen to me talk now. So let me tell you a little bit about the TSA. Are you aware of Building 7? Like, have you heard of Building 7? So I'll kind of just take a few minutes to say something to them.
That's amazing. You do your small part, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you feel bad. The people that are working there, they're just trying to get paid, right? But that's why the whole system.
Doing my job.
Yeah, they are though. Like it's bad. I've missed
have a friend that used to work for the TSA, and he was like, "No fucking way, I'm done. Like I can't do this."
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I would think they'd get a lot of turnover. I missed a flight because of them once. Just like taking their sweet ass time with like going through my shit.
Let me guess, you don't get any kickback because of that. It's just like, oh, sorry, too bad.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. You're just screwed. All right, man. Well, other than that, how are things looking price-wise this week?
Yeah. So, last week we talked about I still think there's more juice to squeeze from here. We've got the, the ETFs coming up, and the macro, everything still looks pretty bullish. We have definitely hit some big resistance areas. That doesn't necessarily mean that the run is over. But this week looked a little bit like a cool off week for crypto, although stocks seem to keep running, depending on the stock. We also had some big macro events hit the streets today. There was a Federal Reserve meeting, and then we got inflation numbers. Sorry, not today, this week. So I guess the first thing we could talk about is the Fed meeting. So we haven't had a Fed meeting since, I think it's October, so it's been a while. And they didn't commit to lowering rates. They didn't commit to, they said that they're probably done raising rates, but that they don't want to tie their own hands. So, that maybe it could be appropriate to raise in the future still, but they're pretty close. They said, hey, we think we're right about at that target. This was the first meeting that they have ever said anything about the potential for cutting rates, like the conditions under which they might cut rates. For the past 2 years, since 2021, they have not said anything about the conditions under which they might cut rates. They said that's not appropriate. We're not near that point. Like there will be no rate cuts. We're going to continue to raise and to hold them higher for longer than what people thought. This was the very first meeting where they said, well, if such and such happens, maybe we would end up lowering rates, but obviously we'll play that in real time. So the market took that. Let's go to the rates. The market took that very optimistically. And as we know, the markets, like stock markets in general, especially stock markets, but markets in general, when it comes to the Fed bailing them out, are ever optimistic because the Fed has always bailed them out, basically, for the most part. That, and you got a lot of liquidity sloshing around. So the markets have the liquidity to be optimistic. So the rates are here. Don't worry about these lines up here. That's stock markets and global liquidity. Okay, so you'll notice that rates are now starting to drop. I wouldn't say precipitously or anything like that, but they did take a pretty sharp turn to the downside. And you'll notice that the 3-month and the 6-month are now starting to look like they might come below the federal funds rate. right? So currently sitting about 5.3%. So this again is one of those signs where it's like the typical pattern that we see, and I don't want to make a causation fallacy here, but the typical pattern we see is the Fed will raise rates, they'll sort of flat top level off, and then rates will start dropping below the federal funds rate, and then they'll drop off very quickly as the yield curve inversion corrects back to normal. And somewhere in that process, that's where you'll get some big risk off event where the stock market crashes for, I don't know, for like a week or a month or something like that until the Fed comes in and rescues it again. You'll notice that kind of a similar pattern happened here. Okay, so here's the stock market right here, the candles. We can probably expand that just a little bit to make it easier to see. I was looking at this earlier, but we'll take the federal or the global liquidity off. Okay, so here's the stock market. You'll notice that the 2020 crash, that's kind of the pattern that we saw, although it was a little bit more long-lived. So the stock market's actually kept going up because rates are kind of coming down, and so that makes access to liquidity a bit easier. So there's kind of like there's multiple mechanisms that happen here when it comes to bonds and rates and what they mean for the stock market. A lot of times the way in which they move is more important than the direction in which they move. So you'll notice that things were kind of slowly coming down, and all the while you've got these gains, stock market coming back. This was also the end of taper tantrum, where the Fed was like, we're going to taper our Federal Reserve balance sheet. It's like watching paint dry, with their words. So basically all of the mortgage-backed securities and stuff that they had purchased in 2009 to save the market from total collapse, total and permanent collapse. They were like trying to sell some of that balance sheet back into the market, but obviously, if you're selling houses or mortgage-backed securities, which is the underlying asset is houses, if you're selling that back into the market, you're kind of you're taking liquidity out of the market, right? You're taking dollars that were slushing around to go into some asset to buy something to, that helps keep prices up. You're taking that money off of the market. So as you can imagine, that is like, that's generally negative. But there's other things too that we have to consider in terms of like the bigger liquidity picture. So anyways, okay, so we're looking here at the 2020 crash, and you'll notice things are kind of slowly coming down on the rates, and so the market is kind of also slowly going up. And then we got the big crash here, and that all happened simultaneously with bonds crashing. Now, someone asked me to cover this, to cover kind of like the action in the bond market. What happens is when big, massive risk-off events start happening, people don't want to be in the stock market, right? Like, especially big institutions that really know what's up. That's a 33% loss. Like, who wants to sit down for 33%? Like, not even in crypto do you want to sit for 33%. Like, okay, it happens, we're more used to it. But so what happens is big institutions end up selling stocks and going into bonds, because imagine that you have the opportunity to get into a bond. Let's just say a 2-year bond or even a 1-year bond, right? Because you want to ride out this whole, you want to ride out all that nastiness. So you have the opportunity right here to get into a 1-year bond at somewhere around 1.5%, or you can hang on to your stocks and lose 33%. So this is one reason that that yields drop so much when risk-off events are in progress, because people know that the Fed is going to lower rates eventually to save the market, and plus you have the people knowing that, like the institutional and the investors that know that's going to happen, or strongly suspect it's going to happen. But the other thing that you have that causes these yields to fall off a cliff is that as demand increases for some bond, for somebody selling a bond, the person selling that bond doesn't really want to sell it to you at a high interest rate, because that means they have to pay you more money in the future. They'd rather sell it at a low interest rate. So if the market is saturated for the product that you're offering, you're like, well, let's give them a little bit lower of a rate. Everyone wants our bonds. We don't need to give them an attractive rate. So they'll sell it at lower and lower and lower rates as more and more and more people come to buy those bonds. So it's a flight to safety, effectively. And that flight to safety in a market sense forces yields down, but also the market anticipates, and this is kind of what happened recently, what happened yesterday or this week. The market anticipates that the Fed is going to drop rates, and so bonds start coming down ahead of that decision because the market is, forward-looking, basically. So this is the pattern that we've seen. We've seen it over and over again this decade, where rates climb. The stock market continues to go up. I know this is a messy chart. I apologize, but there's just no way. It's hard to show all this data in a way that's easy to see. Maybe this is a little bit better. Okay, so rates climb. The Federal Reserve raises their target rates. You flat top. The markets still continue to go up, and then things start coming to the downside. You have rates basically all moving down, and mostly, for the most part, still lower than the federal funds rate, the overnight federal funds rate. And that's a sign. Again, that's a sign that, look, the market is going into a risk-off mode. Insiders probably know something you don't. And then you notice the market either falls in tandem or it falls just a little bit after. Like, we're talking days to weeks. So for this whole area, it's not like for this part of the curve, we don't really have to worry too much because there's probably still gains on the way. You'll notice that things even started dropping and the market made another high. In fact, its all-time high was right there. So right now, the kind of thing that we're looking at is, federal funds rate is now kind of at that flat top point, and rates are starting to come to the downside. So what we're really going to be looking for is for these guys to get down here and then for more drops to continue happening. And we're going to be looking at that to try and determine if the market is entering a risk-off mode. I still think that the most likely scenario is that there's more gains on the table here for the stocks, and that probably means crypto as well. So let's take a look at the inflation numbers. Those came out as well. There wasn't really much change here. Actually, the core inflation held steady. The CPI came back down just a little bit. So this is like generally good. So 4% is historically high for the past 2 decades. You'll notice that we didn't have 4% core inflation. You have to go all the way back to the 80s to see that. So the Federal Reserve really, they really do want to see this thing get down to the 2%, 3% area. Things are still a little bit high. The producer price index is now in trend. The CPI is now basically in trend. The core is still a little bit high. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, if that's going to happen or not. I really should take a deep dive at some points into the progressive changes they've made over the years in terms of how they measure core and how they measure CPI, because they can finagle those numbers, and they've been slowly adjusting those numbers since the 90s. It's funny because the U.S. complained that Russia was always faking their numbers, and then the U.S. started doing it. So it's like we look at these numbers. Okay, this isn't definitely not the real inflation that's happening. They definitely juice these numbers, and maybe not juice them, but they're definitely trying to suppress these numbers in certain ways. I just can't tell you how much. I guess Shadow Stats kind of says that, but I kind of like to see things for myself. So that's the macro picture. That's kind of like the big broad background that's happening there. Housing. So this is the housing market. You'll notice again we talk about this sawtooth. We're about to hit January, and January is the point where housing tends to rebound to the upside. So especially with the macro situation as it is right now, expect housing to take a big bump, like if you've been trying to sell your house and now with rates starting to come down, I bet you there's a whole bunch of people out there that were waiting, saying, hey, maybe rates will come down eventually. As rates come down, expect the housing market to pick up. The volume to pick up. And again, with the liquidity sloshing around and the gains happening, I imagine that a lot of that's going to spill into the housing market. So if you're trying to sell your house, there's a good chance that you can fetch a decent price in the March, April, May timeline. And that's the season for selling and buying houses. It always happens in the spring and early summer. So that's kind of what we're looking at on a macro picture. Maybe I guess we'll go talk about crypto at the end here, because we're already deep into the macro. Okay, so here's the dollar index, and I didn't like how the dollar index kind of I didn't like how the dollar index right here just kind of capped out. I really wanted to see it make it cleanly all the way to those levels, and it did not. So I guess I can complain that the reverse repo market and them pulling shitloads of cash from there, and the Treasury printing $1 trillion in Q3, and or maybe it was Q4, I don't know, but they're printing $1 trillion at a time now. Maybe that has something to do with the dollar stopping a little bit short of where kind of the target areas we're at, and then reversing. At the moment, it's taken a really, really big dip as of the past week. Again, this is the market's just pumping. This is kind of that inverse correlation that you see the Dixie tends to have in a big broad sense. It's not one for one. It's not day to day, but sometimes it is day to day, and that kind of happens. So we had a big drop off. Dollar index is now at some pretty significant support area. I don't know. I don't know what this chart's going to do. I mean, obviously, I don't know what any chart's going to do, but in this case, I don't really have any opinions what happens here. This is one of those cases where it's there's big liquidity moving in the markets. There's still $800 billion of reverse repos. You've got the Treasury. So the U.S. Treasury Department now said that they're gonna buy their own treasuries if they need to, because their sales have been like, terrible. No one wants to buy their treasuries. But apparently, maybe recently, because people think that yields are going to go down, the Federal Reserve is going to lower rates. Maybe people are interested in buying treasuries now because they want to get into a good rate before rates start coming down, right? Because you want to lock in that 5% that markets are sitting at. That maybe it's only like 4.5% if you're getting into a longer term treasury, but you want to get into those treasuries now and you want to lock in that nice guaranteed yield before rates go down. And then you try and buy and you're like, well, I'm only getting 2% now. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen with this dollar chart. This is one of those situations where like it could just hang out down here at the bottom and then crash, or it could hang out at the bottom and then rebound. At the moment, I guess it looks stable. You would say, okay, dollar index looks relatively stable. And that's, I mean, you want that. That's what you want if you want to see the market make gains. So, you know, a little bit of up, a little bit down, kind of range bound. So that's what the dollar's looking like. Gold, this is good action, right? This is good action with gold here because, you know, it had the big wick. It set new all-time highs and then came back down. Okay, but basically this is gold saying, hey, we're getting frothy. We're really thinking about making a big move here. It stopped out here and then held its own this week. This is the weekly chart, by the way. Maybe we could look at the daily. Probably don't really need to, but yeah, I mean, so gold is probably going to consolidate a little bit here in this range, and we're still looking for gold at some point to pump and to sort of signal to us that the bull market really is on. Because at the moment, yes, the Nasdaq has technically made a new all-time high, and yes, it's sitting above those all-time highs. This could be resistance. It's hard to say that because, again, it's always hard to call, even if it's a temporary top, it's hard to say the stock market is done pumping or done making a move, because it's just like stocks are just so optimistic. That's like the headliner thing that the politicians and the Fed and everyone, even though the Fed doesn't say it, like that's the thing they want you to look at and be like, look how good the economy is. Everyone's making money. And it kind of works because America exports inflation. We export dollars. So that's like that's why that works. That's why he can point at the stock market and say the economy is good because the stocks are high because we're exporting our inflation. That's just kind of how that works. So in a larger sense from the wave magic levels, really, like if we get some major pump, the next place to look at here are these purple lines. Like usually when the stock market is in a bull market, it'll just ride these purple bands in between like blue and purple bands for long periods of time. Maybe if I can slide this chart over. I may or may not be able to. Okay, yeah, hopefully that looks a little bit more convincing to you. So when stocks are in like years long-term macro bull markets, you'll notice that they ride these purple bands. And when I was like sort of inventing this concept that I call wave magic, the overlaying multiple Bollinger Bands on top of each other, these purple bands are not standard deviations. They're not even like 2 or 3 standard deviations. They're like a derivative of the standard deviation. It's like you're looking at the standard deviation of the line which came before it, the moving standard deviation of the blue lines, and then plotting that in addition, like adding that to the blue lines. So when you get markets really start pumping, it sort of moves, you could almost call it exponential. Like these purple bands will move in an exponential fashion. Anyways, when I was plotting these like multiple Bollinger Bands overlaying this, I noticed that the stock market, like these Bollinger Bands weren't useful because the stock market would just be so frothy. It would just be above them so much. So I said, is there any way that I can like extend this? Like, I don't want to use 2 times the standard deviation or 3 times the standard deviation because that's arbitrary. Like you're choosing some multiplier there. And I thought it was arbitrary. So I found a way to sort of extend that without making it arbitrary, using like sort of like a fundamental idea that I think seems to work. And there's no like arbitrary multiplier constants that I need to use. Anyways, the point is that stocks, when they get back into a bullish scenario, stocks are going to are basically going to ride these purple bands. You're going to see them get up here and then they're just going to stay, they're going to bounce around in that zone. Let's see. We talked a little bit about the reverse repos. You'll notice that how much was that? 849. So, yeah, another 120 billion just came out of the reverse repo. Oh, sorry, 170 billion came out of the reverse repo markets this past week. So again, this is liquidity. This is money that can go somewhere. This is money that can buy bonds. Probably a lot of this money is actually just buying bonds, which is good. Like in the terms of gains, like you need bonds to be stable and relatively strong. You don't want to see like the value of bonds falling off a cliff. You don't want to see You don't want to see yields pumping massively. You don't want to see them crashing massively. You want to see them stable. That's the thing that convinces stock markets to pump, is stable bond markets. You can be trending up, you can be trending down. It's fine, doesn't matter. It just needs to be trending in a gentle fashion, not a violent fashion. Let's go to Monero. Why not? This is XMR BTC. Let's go to Monero USD. Yeah, somehow this lower line is still relevant. I don't know why. I don't know why I put that SMA. Oh yeah, someone had asked me about. Oh, that was Alaska. Yeah, Alaska last week asked me about the potential for sort of taking your pay in Monero and then using the 200 SMA as a means of determining if you need to be cautious or if you can be optimistic. So like, if Monero price was really significantly above the 200-day moving average, you would say, okay, maybe this Monero is worth a little bit more than it's going to be worth in the coming weeks. So I'll be careful there. Or maybe if Monero is below this line, you would say, okay, well, this is less than probably what Monero is going to be worth. Even though the dollar value of what I have is lower, I can expect that to probably return to sort of the 200-day average. Anyways, so that's for Alaska there, that you had asked about that last week. So yeah, somehow this line is still relevant. Somehow Monero is still not able to get above our last year, like when the rest of the market was just crap and just barely starting to recover. Like Monero had already significantly recovered almost to $200, and somehow we just can't make it up to $200. Some people are wondering now if Kraken, why is it not here? All right, well, we'll just talk about it, I guess. There was a situation with Kraken where they were down for like an hour overnight. Their withdrawals were down for an hour, and we saw some people on Reddit complaining. And so Kraken came out and they said, they responded. They said, hey, no problem. There were Monero funding delays. Some clients experienced delays with their XMR withdrawals, and this incident has been resolved. Okay. And then people were asking, like, well, what do you mean by funding delays? Like, what exactly, like, how is there a funding delay? Don't you have all the funding? And then so, like, for example, I asked them, I said, hey, is this like a cold wallet, hot wallet segregation where you kind of have to, you have to manually move funds from the hot wallet or from the cold wallet to the hot wallet as a safety mechanism, or do you have liquidity partners that perform just-in-time funding to meet withdrawals? That was the trap question, really, which of course they didn't respond to any of it. Or maybe something like, oh, we have a security system which monitors all withdrawals and has to approve the funding of those withdrawals. And we had a bug in the system that was freezing everything for a period of time, and it was the middle of the night, so someone had to go review it and remove that trigger. But they never responded. It was very, very general. In fact, it was the kind of very highly generalized response that you get suspicious because you're like, I believe you're telling the truth, but what does that mean exactly? And why won't you elaborate and specify what that means? It was only for an hour in the middle of the night. The thing that was really suspicious, the thing that made us say, guys, this doesn't look right, is because Binance was down for like 12 or 18 hours that same day, overlapping with Kraken. Binance withdrawals were down, and they haven't gone down for that long since last year, right? Like, if y'all remember, we had 2022 and half of 2021 where Binance was just shutting down withdrawals for days, often days, sometimes a week or two at a time. And then suddenly that stopped in January of this year. And we're like, that's interesting. Why did that stop? How did that stop? And then so Binance has not been down for a long time. Like, okay, you'll see them down for like 1 hour or 2 hours every month or so, but that's not a big deal. Like, that's nothing. But they went down for like 12 to 18 hours this past week, and then Kraken mysteriously goes down for withdrawals for an hour, which is very unusual for Kraken. And it happens at the same time. And then Kraken gives this they give this kind of it sounds truthful, but maybe slightly evasive or not complete information kind of answer. And then they don't respond to requests for more specified information. And so there is some suspicion there, and then obviously Kraken got sued by the SEC recently. And so there's questions over okay, well, how deeply, what kinds of really shady things could be happening in the background? Was Kraken fully reserved or mostly fully reserved? And then they got hit by the government, and does the government hate Monero enough to pay attention to it to cause fractional reserve to suppress the price while everything else is pumping? I don't know, man. That's that's going pretty tinfoil, right? That's going highly speculative. But that's just like you're just brainstorming. So, okay, what could be the case? What could be happening? Like to pretend that these guys would not do something that is in their benefit. When I say these guys, I mean like the sort of deep state cabal. I mean like the crypto insiders. Like we've seen every manner of fraud happen. In a financial sense, in a medical sense, we've seen them do every kind of fraud. So it's like everything is on the table for what they might be doing. It's just a matter of what do we have evidence that they could be doing. And we don't want to jump to conclusions. And Kraken has been good to us for the most part. It seems like, at least relatively, compared to everyone else, Kraken has been pretty good to Monero by not freezing withdrawals, by at least reserving at least enough to never really have to freeze withdrawals. And this was only an hour. So I'm just kind of like sort of like stream of consciousness there about like, okay, well, how can we think about this? What are the, like, we don't want to jump to conclusions. We don't want to accuse them and shake the finger at them because maybe everything's fine there. And maybe it was, here's a theory. It could just be that Binance was out of Monero again. And they were just like pulling as much as they could from Kraken. And like, we need more. People are taking Monero. Like, we don't have enough Monero. And Kraken went down for the withdrawals because they're like, someone's withdrawing a shitload of Monero and we need to like put a stop on this and put a human to review to put eyeballs on what's happening here just to make sure that we didn't get hacked or something. It could be as innocuous as that. I would just like it if they would, say, hey, this is what happened. So, okay. Yeah. Hopefully that's kind of a bit of a long
Gotta limit freedom.
there. Say what?
Gotta limit freedom. They're like, it's too much. Gotta keep it down a little bit.
There's so much freedom happening. We think we got hacked. No, I don't know. Okay, so anyways, yeah, Monero is like still just being our lovely little stable coin. We did like pump above just slightly, right? We got $7-8 above that 170 capping level and then came right back down as the rest of the market kind of hit their resistances and cooled off. Monero versus Bitcoin. You'll notice again, we still continue to be inversely associated. That the ratio of Monero to Bitcoin continues to be inversely associated to the price movements of Bitcoin USD and the total market cap of crypto. Which again is just weird, like that typically shouldn't happen. I really should compare against multiple assets to see if there's anything else that's inversely correlated. Maybe some of the other coins which are alleged to be fractionally reserved, like Bitcoin Cash and I don't know if Doge anymore. There was like accusations that Binance had fractionally reserved Doge. Monero versus Ethereum is, it's just kind of like hanging out in this in-between space right here. If there's more gains to be had, if the market is going to continue pumping as a whole, like as a broad, as a broad market, we can probably expect the Ethereum to Monero ratio to go down, right? We're probably going to end up here in this area at some point if we do think the market's going to continue pumping there. Let's go to the overall crypto market. And so we're on BLX. Let's go to BTC USD. Okay, so we don't need to be on the weekly either. Maybe we'll just go to the 2-day. Okay. All right. So you'll notice that like Bitcoin is basically hitting these big headliner standard deviation areas. Like we've talked about for a few weeks now. Really, we've talked about for months that if things are going to be positive, if things are going to pump, that we're really, really looking to this area, both for the fact of that was the last sort of top out point before the bear market really crashed and everyone started going bankrupt. And then also the standard deviation analysis puts us here. So we got the ETFs, so there was another, was it Valkyrie or I don't remember who it was, Pro Shares, doesn't matter. Another ETF got added to the DTCC list. I don't know what DTCC stands for, but you might not know this, but when you buy a stock in the stock market, Fidelity does not hold that stock for you on your behalf. The something trade commission, I wish I should have looked that up before today's show. The DTCC, also called The Street, holds stocks. Like they basically do like the deep back end sort of custody of all these assets, of all these different equity assets in digital form. They're the ones that hold these stocks when you buy them. It's not even like Fidelity. Fidelity is just like the matchmaker, sometimes the liquidity provider, or all right, that doesn't matter. But the point is that if you want to get your equity asset added in a digital sense to the trading markets, you need the DTCC to add you to their list of stuff that they have. They added at least one other Bitcoin ETF. This was, I think, a couple months ago. And then they recently added another Bitcoin ETF to like their sort of like database. It doesn't mean that they've added it like to be tradable or anything, but it got added in an official sense for their like reporting purposes. So that signifies that, it's just another little like drop in the bucket that these ETFs are probably going to be approved. there's like this nuance about cash creates and like the way in which the ETF trades in and out and like balances their books. Obviously, the SEC is making them do the one that's going to create more fees and make it more difficult for them to, for these ETFs. But ETFs, like the people leading them, the companies that have them, that propose them, they're basically capitulating to the SEC right here, saying like, okay, we'll do it that way. We don't want to do it that way, but we'll do it that way. So that's just kind of like a small little win for the SEC. But in the bigger picture, the fact that that is happening means that real negotiation is taking place, and that probably these ETFs are going to be approved. So I say that to point out that if they're going to be approved, that just, again, that lines up with this whole idea that there's more juice to be squeezed. There's more pump to happen. Of course, there's got to be a bit of a consolidation that's going to happen before things really take off to the upside. And it's not too surprising that we would get a stop and pullback and some consolidation here in this area, because again, humans are statistical processing machines in aggregate, and the market, quote unquote, people know when you're coming up to these big headliner areas where things have been before, whether that's horizontal areas of significance, which everybody like knows about, or whether it's just the intuition that, man, things have gone quite a long way. We need to take a stop and pullback point. So that's kind of like, when I look at these statistical charts, I kind of think of them significantly in terms of aggregate market sociology or psychology. So I mean, it's in that zone. That doesn't mean that we can't go above. These charts often will go above. You'll often see something do that. And that's what we saw last bull market, actually, or last rebound off the bear market, was you beat the standard deviation areas. People are bullish for a little bit, and then they come back down. It's rare for you to actually come up here, do this, and then go to the upside just immediately. The stock market can do it because the stock market is beloved by the insider cabal and by the Federal Reserve and everyone else. So they can do that with the stock market. It gets special consideration. Most assets like Bitcoin don't just pump to the top side of massive macro standard deviation levels and then keep going. So again, this is effectively a resistance area that we're looking at, but that doesn't mean that the gains are over. It just means that we probably, things might need to take a little break here. Or maybe some big news comes out, or some small news comes out, or maybe the market just gets bullish again and things start pumping next week. That could happen. So the point is that, like, I am looking personally to take profits on effectively on shitcoin positions. I'm looking for good exits. I still think there's more juice to be squeezed, which means that my own fear and greed index is on the greedy side here at this point. So like AVAX here has been pumping. I haven't actually looked at AVAX this morning. What has it done? Oh, nice. AVAX went up another, 10% this morning. Okay. So AVAX was kind of one of those like insurance plays I told you guys about, that I felt like, hey, this thing could probably do better than other coins. Should probably do better than Bitcoin in a broad bullish sense. So
wait, what's AVAX again? What is
AVAX? AVAX is a gossip protocol. Hang on one second.
Oh.
Sorry, excuse me. So AVAX is a gossip protocol. They did a 10% pre-mine. So there's the scam that everyone can shout about. It's effectively a directed acyclic graph, a DAG as they call it, and it's a gossip protocol because transactions are validated by a random sort of gossip process, which happens where everyone's like, okay, well, I see this and I see this, well, I see this and this and this, and so if everyone's like, it can be the case, and usually it's going to be the case that everyone's like, oh, I see the same thing, oh, we all see the same thing. Once you reach a threshold, you consider the transaction to be locked in, or there's a term for it, I forget. Ethereum has it too, where it's like irreversible, immutable, or that's not the right term, but something like that. But yeah, AVAX is very interesting because it's highly scalable, because you don't need everybody in the network to see every transaction to be able to validate that those transactions are happening. And so you've got the main, like, it's not a beacon chain, but okay, let's just use Ethereum terminology. It's like a beacon chain. It's like the main chain. And then you get like subnets that you can split off of that. So effectively, it's highly scalable. You can make very particular subnets that have specific purposes, and you can even like recreate. You can recreate entire chains as a subnet on AVAX because it's like highly generalized in the way that you can code. Recently, we had Amazon. So earlier this year, Amazon was like, "We're looking into AVAX. That's interesting technology." And then who was the last guy? It was I think 10 days ago or 7 days ago. Another big company, some major company, like we're talking like a FANGs, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, one of those like types of companies was like, we're looking into AVAX because it could be useful for us. So I mean, it's an interesting, like, again, it's one of those things. It's like it's a combination of, for me, like my thought process in selecting AVAX and Link specifically is that there's a combination of a fundamentally unique use case and technology and a good narrative and community around it that has high potential for big pumps. So like for Link, for example, like Link operates across multiple chains. It runs oracles. And yes, it's got problems. Like, please don't shout me down, you guys out there. Like, Link they're centralized. Yeah, I know they're centralized. Okay. And yes, I know that they fucking cheated the oracles when everyone was going bankrupt, and they stopped the liquidation from happening by misreporting or not reporting for like 15 minutes. And they prevented a liquidation that should have happened. Okay, yes, I know that, but that doesn't matter. Like, if we're talking about price, we're talking about gains here. That doesn't matter. Link has an interesting community, or they've got like a vocal community. They've got a good narrative. They've got a unique use case. They've got a product that does things that no one else does, even if it's centralized. And so it's going to be important for DeFi going into the future, like end of story, like period. It's going to be important. There's nothing else that does what it does, and or at least at the level that it does it. AVAX is another one of these coins that's a bit newer than Link, but again, it's very interesting. It's got unique technology. They've got a good narrative. They're showing like that it can be useful. Although it looks like the fees shot up recently. Let's Vic just said that on the comments there that AVAX fees shot up recently. So I don't know. That would be worth looking into, to see why that happened, because it's supposed to be scalable. It's supposed to be scalable. So maybe that's a growing pain. I don't know. But AVAX is interesting. And so it was one of my plays. I said, okay, fundamentally it seems interesting. And then also it's got a good narrative. So let's just buy this as an insurance play in case I'm wrong, because I expect that it should pump more than other coins. If we are actually going into a big bull positive moment here. So that was months ago. And so far it's been doing pretty good. So it's going to be difficult to sell it, because at the same time it's like, well, what happens if it does a 10x next year and I sold, right? And I never got back in, right? So there's that to contend with. Maybe I'll just sell half, or maybe I won't sell it at all. Anyways, okay. Enough on shitcoins for today. And I think there's really not much here, not much else to talk about. We've got the Bitcoin dominance just kind of hanging out a little bit flat, still in this triangle. It does look like, okay, the market is getting convinced of a bullish scenario. You're starting to see the old rats come out of the woodwork. You're starting to see people talk about the massive gains, the mad gains on the way here. All that stuff is happening. That can continue for a period of time. So, again, that's, in my mind, eventually that ends up as exit liquidity. I guess we'll just have to wait and see there. Last thing, let's take a look at the Bitcoin stock market. I haven't looked at Bitcoin versus stocks in a while. So like Bitcoin is even doing well still relative to the stock market, even though the stock market has been putting on pretty big pumps for the stock market. Like 10 to 15% move in the stock market is like massive celebrations and champagne bottles for those guys. 10% for us, it's like a Tuesday. So anyways, Bitcoin's still doing pretty good relative to the stock market. And this is the total market cap relative to the stock market. Don't worry that it says Bitcoin up there. I've done all the magic here on the scripts. So that we're looking at total and not Bitcoin. Even the total crypto market cap is still doing pretty good relative to stocks. So I guess that's about it. Does anyone have any questions? Should I check the YouTube? I'm always so bad. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to ignore your questions. I just forget.
Any questions out there? Post them up. Bawdy will answer them. Throw them in the comments.
There's like 1 or 2 questions last week.
We're up to like 40 live viewers today. We got
nice.
A lot of people popping in.
Smash the like. You will.
Yeah, we won't say it enough. I guess because I said that a few times, it actually helped. Now I understand why people say it all the time.
I know when I'm watching, I want to upload something and I forget, and then someone says smash the like. I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot to like this video. Yep, here you go. Have a like, sir.
Here we go, Bawdy. Bawdy, what does Chainlink do that's unique?
So Chainlink operates on multiple chains and allows you to coordinate DeFi and coordinate oracles, like things like price feeds for, say, the stock market or Tesla. You want to get, or maybe even a football game, right? You want to get some kind of like outside information onto the blockchain, onto a blockchain, any blockchain, so that you can do some kind of like DeFi stuff there. So Chainlink, among, I think, one of many things it does, it acts as an oracle across multiple chains. They have a token that's specific to Link, and like Link, for example, Link doesn't need Ethereum. It's integrated significantly into Ethereum DeFi, but it doesn't need Ethereum. It can operate on any EVM chain, and I think it operates on AVAX. I have to assume that they would have already have some AVAX stuff there. So Link is like it's an interchain coordinator. for various information and things like oracles. So hopefully that makes sense.
All right. There we go.
Powers
So
cross-chain
powers
DeFi.
cross-chain.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, buddy. Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As always, please stick around if you can.
I've actually got to bounce out here.
Okay, no worries.
All right.
No worries.
Thanks as always, Bawdy.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
Okay, so do we got our special guest? I've been hitting them up in the chat. Oh wait, now I don't see anybody in there.
No, we had somebody in there earlier.
We had somebody in there earlier.
You're gone.
I'm DMing with Cuban Warrior. Hey man, you're jumping on. He said, "All Douglas, yes."
Oh, we got Seafolk. Who is Seafolk?
I think it's somebody that just wants to ask him some questions. But Cuban Warrior, we need you to jump up. While we wait, should we move on to what we should do the news?
We can. I don't have any of the links open in the browser, so I'll have to open all those real quick. Or, I mean, if he doesn't show up, well, I guess he just gets.
We could bring
I guess Seafolk just gets to talk crap all he wants.
Here we go. We got somebody.
Ramsey.
Oh, no, that's Ramsey. That's Ramsey. Yeah, I guess let's run the special guest segment and bring Seafolk up.
All right, let's do it.
The Monerotopia guest segment is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys.
You know, Cake Wallet seems like a cool company. I don't know. It just looks cool.
Something about it.
Hello, Seafolk.
Hello. You can hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. How's it going?
We hear you loud and clear, man.
So like I said too, my English is really bad, but I can fully understand what you say. So
Yeah, it's not too bad. Just speak slowly, and we can understand. You're good, man. You're good.
Okay. So yeah.
So yeah, I know you reached out because you saw Cuban Warrior's post, and you're also from Cuba, right? And I guess you had some questions for him or some insights about it. I'm looking. I mean,
Yes.
So for those that don't know what we're talking about, we had maybe we could do a share screen here. We had the Cuban Warrior who has been using Kuno to raise funds to build what he's calling it a Monero Mesh Network. And he built it in some town, village in Cuba. We're not exactly sure where. I don't think he ever revealed the location. And he's done, I think, 2 or 3 successful Kunos already for it. He's raised over like 30 XMR, and now he's looking to raise another 36 XMR for a 4th phase. So he's built these mesh networks in some town, and looks like he's trying to expand it to other areas. That's the rundown. Sounds amazing, right? Using Monero, people are donating. This is kind of the dream come true, and he's building out a network that, in theory, is providing people essentially anonymous or censorship-resistant proof access to the internet. So all things that align beautifully with Monero. But Seafolk, I think you may have some questions. You may see some issues with this, or what's your take?
Okay, I can give a lot of details on how internet works in Cuba. I can go very technical with that, but since my English is bad for me, well, I can go. If you can bring here a translator, we can speak better.
We don't have our in-house translator today. We usually have Andres, but he's at a asado in Argentina. He's at a barbecue, I think, chilling with some Bitcoiners and Monero people right now. Actually,
I think
give it a shot, man. Give it a shot. You're not too bad.
Well, there is a lot to say in what Cuban Warrior say. I was listening to the space like a few weeks ago. like 90% like almost all he was saying it was like gibberish, like very untrue, very illogical. Because for example, I am an NFT artist. I contacted Human using my NFT account on Twitter, on X. So I live. I have 3 nationalities: Spain, Bolivian, and Cuban. So I move around countries a lot. But I am now in Cuba. I am working with internet in Cuba. I work with blockchain in Cuba. So the entire point of a person not being able to connect to internet in Cuba, well, only by being existing and working here is probably wrong.
So you're saying there's no issue with connecting to the internet for the average Cuban citizen.
Yes, there is a lot of issues on the day-to-day, since the internet company is a monopoly. They can shoot the internet due to political reasons, but that's not something you can see on the daily basics. Sorry. So for the day-to-day Cuban, there is internet. You can connect whenever you want. It's a little expensive for the normal worker because, for example, a medium income here is around $20, probably 30, and 8 gigas of internet are around $2. So we don't have internet at home most of the time. Everyone connects using mobile data, so you have to pay to connect for. You buy a plan data, and when it's done, you have to buy another. There is nothing like internet at home. We call it in Spanish tarifa plana, like normal Wi-Fi on any place. There are some homes with Wi-Fi, but since it's really slow, there is almost no point on hiring that type of service.
Okay. Now, I mean, but basically, so I don't think he's not claiming that nobody can access the internet. He's more so saying that he's building a mesh network that will make internet access resistant to censorship, or I guess being tracked or traced by the government when people are using the internet. So there's definitely value there, right? If he's actually building this thing. So he says he would anonymously allow people to access the internet over Tails and Tor using his mesh network. But yeah, go ahead. What's your thinking on that?
Okay, well, Cuban government can see what you make or what you do in the internet when you use state apps, like bank apps or very specific ways, application. But in the daily basics, I can talk with you on here, and there is no way the government can know that I'm talking with you, because they don't have the technical ways to spy on the connections. Because, for example, when you're using WhatsApp, Meta can see whatever they want, but Meta is not going to give you. It's not going to give the Cuban state the info of that. Same things happens to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So the anonimato, the freedom of speech behind a profile without KSC, without a picture is there. So, and also every internet connection on the island is how to say it, is provided by the internet company that is a state company. There is no way he can go around and create another internet connection or have another internet connection, because that will be highly illegal and he can go to jail.
So the state has more control over the internet providers there than they do in most countries. What you're saying?
The state is the internet provider.
Okay. Yeah, that's
right. So by using this mesh network and Tails and Tor, I mean, you're saying that doesn't give users any protections in terms of privacy or and
take the island like an island, like a piece of land without connection to other lands, only by sea. Yeah, same thing happens with internet.
So you're saying that people can't even use Tor?
Yes, they can use Tor. I use blockchain every day. What I mean is that if you want to get another internet connection, another internet provider, it's impossible. So you can connect to internet. You can be anonymous you want. You can work with blockchain. The government can't know what you're doing. You can be don't know, a Cuban freedom fighter, like the dude refers to himself, and the government can know who are you, but you can go and no puedes. There is no way you can search for another internet provider. So what he is claiming, to resume, is.
Oh, wait, he's on. Let's bring him up. All right, good, great. Oh, did he disappear?
Oh, I think he just disappeared. Yeah.
I know. So he's having issues using the internet, so it's not good everywhere. All right. Well, I really hope he jumps up because I want him to be able to explain himself here. He has raised a significant amount of Monero, like over 30 Monero already, and now he's asking for like another 36. Like I said, if he's actually building these mesh networks, I think it's a very cool project, and he's funding it by the Monero community. But I would like to fully understand what the true value is here. Go ahead, man. Continue.
What I was saying about internet is like you can be anon, you can connect to blockchain, you can do whatever you want. Government don't have a tool to spy, to share for that, to see what are you doing, but there is no way you can find another internet provider. You got me there?
Tux, you follow that logic? What are you saying?
Yeah, is that there's no other ISP, right? It's just the state that runs the internet service.
Right. So at that point, but are you at least obfuscating like your IP and who you are when you're accessing the internet?
Sorry, repeat.
Tux, maybe you could better express what I'm trying to say, but I mean, I would think there'd still be value added if you could.
Yeah, because what he's doing is making Tor by default, basically.
Right.
With his mesh network.
Like a VPN.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm talking with you with a VPN right now.
Okay.
I use also because for example, Meta and some other pages have like a blockade through Cuban location. I have to use a VPN to connect in the almost every day. There is some medianly good VPN that are free. I use a paid VPN. So knowledge on that also.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that makes. So you're saying like that there's really no, because anybody could just use a VPN or something like that.
Galatas, the GUI with the comment Galatas is a really good Spanish speaker. I know the GUI from my community. If you can bring
drop the link. Tux, drop the link there, and Galatas can jump up.
Okay. So
go ahead.
Another fun fact there that made me laugh a lot the GUI name, the alias Cuban Warrior, translates to Cubano Guerrero or Guerrero Cubano. That is a name from a very known profile on Twitter that is aligned with state interests. So you know what I mean, no? There is a
So
profile.
you say you might be a state actor. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Like, wow,
Without being disrespectful, what I mean is that the Cuban Warrior account doesn't know almost anything about how Twitter or socials work in Cuba. So he probably don't know who even Cubano Guerrero or Cuban Warrior is in the real life. So he's using that alias because it's a good alias. Cuban Warrior has some punch, but in the funny thing is that in Spanish there is also a profile on X that I think was banned that represents the interest of the government. So it's funny because you have the English version that is against that and want to achieve freedom, and you have the Spanish version that is rooting for oppressing you. So
okay. Yeah, I mean, we really need him to join so he could kind of engage with you here and explain his side. We had him on, I guess it was a month or so ago at this point, with others asking questions. And I mean, honestly, so with these kudos, we never, it's hard to determine if somebody's actually doing what they say. Once they do it, though, they should be able to show proof. I mean, we've seen photos and pictures. It looks like he's doing something. I don't know, Tux, what's your thinking on this?
So basically, what you're saying, Seafolk, is that it's a lot easier to get around some of the government's, like, probably DNS block list, right? Like their Great Firewall or whatever, than
yes,
Cuban Warrior is making it out to be. And this is like a lot of unnecessary work for people who could just use a VPN or just use Tor themselves.
exactly.
Interesting. Oh, looks like he connected again.
Here we go. I hope he can stay on. All right, get him up. Cuban Warrior, can you hear us? Oh, what the hell? What's going on?
I don't know. He was able to join because we had.
I'm going to comment something. There is a real issue with the internet in Cuba sometimes, but it's almost related with the state of the connection of the I gotta wait. It's related with the infrastructure of the.
Oh, we lose him?
Sorry, I'm here.
We kind of lost. Go ahead.
There are some problems sometimes with the internet connection, but it's also related with the state of the network per se. So, for example, if I don't know how to say in English, a post, a provider,
an ISP,
an antenna is broken, can be broken for a month or something like that. There is no internet on the most remote areas of Cuba also. So if you are in a remote area, well, it makes sense that you want to get a nano, a Wi-Fi beam, and get some internet there, but and create a mesh for the area. But you don't need Monero for that, and it's not about the privacy that you can get for that. It will be entirely for just get internet there.
So I noticed he's doing this through the LTE data connection. Is the cell tower data, so like LTE 4G, is that a lot faster than what whatever wired internet you have, if it's like DSL or
Yes,
broadband?
a lot faster. Or DLS connection here is via old phone line. You
Oh,
know,
so
like
DSL, yeah. So it's like really slow.
Wow.
yes. So like 10 kilobytes per second, stuff like that. So almost almost no one use that connection.
Oh, 10 kilobyte. Oh, that's like dial-up.
Yes, and even LTE is getting really slow now. So like
So is
1
there
megabyte.
validity then in what he's building here because it's giving them better access? Is what you're saying?
No,
Like better?
because at the end he's using the same network that I'm using.
Mm.
Yep. At the end, yeah, he's just using the. So basically, what Seafolk, if I'm understanding, is saying is that Cuban Warrior is asking for this insane amount of money to do something that each person could do themselves for like a tiny fraction of the
Exactly.
cost, basically. And he's setting up an entirely unnecessary mesh network because in the end he's still going through the same LTE service provider that Seafolk is using, and the only thing that he's doing that might be useful is that he's forcing Tor, but anyone can run like Orbot or Tor on their phone, right, or on their computer. Anyone can do that.
Exactly.
Right, or just use
Exactly.
VPNs.
So in one way it's almost worse because everyone's going to be going through this one system, which is going to end up, if there's a lot of people using it, it'll probably get more clogged than if they all use like individual connections.
All right. Well, I am glad we got the other side of the story, because
Guys, with a quick search on internet, on Instagram, even on Twitter, you can see every day people using social network in Cuba, very easily. You can see profiles that are against the government and are located in Cuba currently, using the socials without problem. So the entire point of being anon, of using Tor, of trying to avoid a supposed state control. The state controls a lot to activists, but if you don't are an activist, you are cool. You can be whatever you want on social, or say whatever you want. If you are anon.
Mm-hmm. I mean, last thing we'd want to do here is hurt somebody's efforts who's trying to do something, experiment with something, and is genuine about it and using Monero for these purposes. But that being said, we also don't want somebody to be out there. I don't want people donating under the false assumption that this is more than
he's asking for a lot.
Right? It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's not a small amount. So,
and it seems like he could
another comment.
ask.
Another comment quickly there. The pics that he showed the last time about like an old server full of computers that were full of those. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Those pics are probably real, but are pics taken from another person. So probably from a server from the old Havana network. Don't know if you guys know, but from like 10 years, the Cuba's created a mesh network in Havana that was mostly for recreational stuff. So we have servers in private houses that have the same of infrastructure. So all computers with a lot of those. So yeah.
Where do you think he's located? Any idea?
Can't say for the pics. Also, he can just take a pic from another profile and post it there. He can be right now on the center of Vedado, that is the center of the city, and taking the picture from a Facebook profile that is located on the
of course. So I mean, yeah. So if he's DMing with me, he said he was trying to join and he can't. But Cuban Warrior, at another time, if you want to come up, you're always you're welcome here to state your case, your side to rebuttal. We don't want you unnecessarily getting bashed here. So the stage is yours. If you want to come up, state your case, show us more convincing evidence of what you've actually done, and perhaps further explain the value and what you're providing here. But yeah, I'm glad you came on, Seafolk. I think it's good. I think it's good. We got to do these with these kunos to suss things out and just put them through the vetting process. We don't want. I love Kuno. That's why I talk about it all the time, and I love the projects that are happening there. And by no means do I ever want to deter somebody from doing a Kuno, a legitimate one. But at the same time, we got to kind of suss out the ones that may be exaggerating a little bit or straight up scams, because that's going to hurt the ecosystem. We don't want people wasting their valuable Monero when they could be donating to legitimate Kunos. I'm not concluding that this one isn't legitimate, but from what I mean, this guy's raised over 30 Monero so far, and he keeps asking more.
How much is 30 Monero? 30 Monero.
I don't know.
How much in use?
It's like $5,000. What is that? Right?
What?
How much is? Oh, what the amount of Monero from the Kuno? That's around $6,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
US dollars.
Wow.
Which I'm sure for like you, that's like way more.
Yeah, I can get that. I can get that mesh working for 100 if you want.
Yeah, and like with the amount he's asking for, like he could just like buy a crap load of SIM cards, right, for people.
Yeah, he's raised like over 5,000. Now he's asking for like another 6,000 more.
Nah.
I mean,
Warrior,
that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Cuban Warrior, if you can hear me right, I can do that for $100. So contact me. I have offer for you.
Maybe he'd let you come check out what he's built. I don't know. Like,
I'm not risking my identity for that.
That's understandable. Actually, we have somebody from the Monero community that I know very well that's down there right now. He might be interested in going on that mission. All right, guys. I guess we'll leave it at that. Seafolk, thank you so much, man. That was insightful. Anything else? Any other insights you could give us regarding Cuba and cryptocurrency and Monero specifically?
Well, crypto in Cuba is gaining a lot of moment. You can see even business negocios, places that running with crypto.
Mm-hmm.
We have even a local exchange now. Look for Cuba Pay. So everything is possible now with crypto in Cuba. So, there is not a lot of adoption, but it's slowly taking some moment. So yeah.
What are people actually using crypto though? Or I mean, is it just they're speculating, they're playing around, people actually using?
I use crypto here. I convert my crypto to Cuban pesos. I know some places that accept crypto also. I have there is not a lot of crypto users, but the ones that use crypto use it in almost every aspect of their life. So like convert it to local coin, to pay for services, to buy a plane ticket, everything.
Mm-hmm. Does it make what is the reasoning to be using crypto in Cuba? Are people using it for remittances? I think that'd be a good use case. Obviously, are you seeing adoption there for that purpose?
For what?
Remittances, like people that are sending money from abroad into Cuba.
Yes. Well, on that case, the hard part is to make the person outside adopt crypto. But yeah, you can do it. And yes, there is a lot of inflation right now happening on the country, even harder than the one in Argentina. crypto is a good way to save your money.
Yes.
With a lot of people leaving the country, and there is it's also a good way to leave the country with your money, because you can leave the country with more than $5,000. So if you have a big stash, crypto is the way.
Right. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Somebody wants to escape Cuba and bring their assets with them. They could do it by converting it all into crypto,
Yes.
and bringing it that way. How about just getting in and out of crypto and like with cash? You know, if I were to, you know, even this guy, right? All this Monero he's raised, could he then easily convert it into cash down there?
If he knows about Cuba Pay, he can convert to cash in around 30 minutes. It's easy.
What is it called? Cuba Pay?
Cuba Pay.
What is that? How does that function? How does that work?
It's like Binance, like Coinbase, like any other exchange. But you have the local peer-to-peer. So I can deposit my crypto, convert to whatever coin I want, and find a peer in Cuba that crypto, and he will deposit Cuban pesos on my account here.
Oh wow. Okay, so it's like a local Monero. It's like a local Monero, kind of. It's
Yes,
peer to peer.
I guess, but it's KSS, so well.
And that's popular. That gets a lot of use, a lot of like liquidity.
Not exactly, because like I said before, crypto adoption is strong, but there is a lot of field to cover still. So, for example, I know like 3-4 people on my circle that use crypto, but no more. So it's not easy to find people that use crypto on the daily basis. So you can find it. But people is scared, because the crypto is almost always related with scams, stuff like pyramidal schemes of stuff like that. So people here is very skeptical still about that. But so some people are trying to it's okay, the state is okay with it, and someone is actually on the chat.
Yes. Are people using it for doing like consulting services? Like that's another great use case, right? So you could be in Cuba, maybe you're a graphic designer or whatever it is, and you're working remotely. Maybe somebody in the U.S. in New York hired you. You're from Cuba. They don't even know who you are, where you are, and then they can pay you with crypto, right?
Yes, like I said before, also the difficult part there is the crypto adoption for the
Shit.
So, well, you can pay with crypto to a given person. So
the difficult part there is what you cut out for a second. The difficult part there is
crypto adoption for the people that is paying you from outside. So
right. Them, yeah. We're building a service for that, XMR Bazaar. It's a peer-to-peer marketplace, but one of the use cases we're really hoping to take off would be people using it for consulting, so buying and selling consulting services on there, and making it global in nature, so people all around the world can come together and use Monero to do consulting services, you know, to earn Monero, or to then use Monero to hire people to do consulting services. It's a good use case, I think. All right, man. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, Cuban Warrior wasn't able to jump up today. Oh, wait, I see him. I see him again. We'll try one last time. Cuban Warrior, are you there?
Looks like he's muted.
You're muted. You're on stage. You're muted, but we can't hear you. Oh, here he goes.
Buenas tardes, ¿me escucha?
You were muted. How's it going?
Hello.
Seafolk, you want to ask him some questions, or
Hello,
can Catch him up.
¿Qué tal, hermano? Buenas tardes. ¿Me
Aló, Douglas.
escuchas?
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Gracias, hermano, por la invitación.
Do you want to kind of catch him up, see what his response is to your criticism? Seafolk?
Hola, ¿qué tal, Cuban Warrior? ¿Me escuchas?
¿Qué tal
Hola.
la serie? ¿Qué tal la serie?
Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes. Nada, estaba escuchando el espacio de Tuman hace como un mes y algo y tenía algunas preguntas con respecto a lo que estás haciendo en Cuba con Monero, cómo lo estás haciendo, la infraestructura que estás montando, cosas así. O sea, no estoy interesado en saber los detalles, por supuesto, porque entiendo que tienes que proteger tu anonimato, pero me interesa, o sea, me dio mucha curiosidad.
Tenemos un paso a paso desarrollado ya. Hay como 3 planes seguidos que hemos desarrollado y hemos sido financiados por la comunidad Monero.
O sea,
Acerca
ok.
de eso, más o menos, como qué quieres saber.
Primero, ¿cuál es la necesidad del sistema? ¿Para qué lo estás implementando? O sea, ¿con qué
La
objetivo?
implementación está basada en realidad en ofrecer mejores velocidades a los usuarios, ofrecer anonimato, ofrecer también Tails, que te permite tener un acceso a Internet de forma única con el AUCB. Además de que hacemos ahora el balanceo de carga con los routers y tenemos unos microtics que recibimos. Hemos alcanzado mejores velocidades de las que podemos acceder con la SIM-card solamente, ¿me entiendes?
Ok. Complicado porque al final Telsa, que es la compañía, tiene como una especie de tubo que, ¿sabes? Un cuello de botella que... O sea, tú al final lo que estás haciendo es para tener mejor velocidad de Internet.
Tenemos
Es
conectado,
eso.
no sé si has extendido
No,
el
no,
último proyecto que
no, sí,
montamos, el último proyecto que montamos.
sí, disculpa, porque si no, nos vamos un poco. O sea, te preguntaba, disculpa que sea, porque si no me pierdo también un poco, porque me perdí parte del espacio la vez pasada. Concretamente, tú estás haciendo el sistema para mejorar la velocidad del Internet usando la
Una de las
conexión de
funciones que
Telsa.
hemos conseguido es obtener mejores velocidades porque tenemos varias SIM-card que te permiten acceder a un ancho de banda que no tienes con una sola. No sé si
Ya,
conoces la técnica de balanceo de carga y para minimizar también el ping y el jitter.
ya. Y ven acá, hermano, ¿y qué utilidad tiene en el día a día? Porque al final estamos hablando de Telsa, Telsa te cobra por cada giga que tú gastes. Si tú estás pagando por una mayor velocidad de internet, significa que tú estás pagando, sí, por mayor velocidad, pero te consume más internet a corto plazo. Estás pagando ese internet de donde ustedes la están. No me respondas, o sea, no tienes por qué responderme específicamente de aquí y de acá. Pero ese internet, ¿cómo ustedes están pagando por ella y si están usando LTE? Y al final,
Estamos financiados por la comunidad Monero, financiados totalmente. Además,
pero
tenemos
entonces,
la posibilidad de acceder
Monero te está pagando.
Tenemos un contacto porque accedemos a SIM-card de turistas. Eso
Sin
está
card de
definido
turista.
también.
Fíjate que primera vez que escucho el término de sin card de turista, y yo soy cubano como tú.
Esas son las que estamos comprando, accediendo por una manera que no puedo describírtela.
No, claro, tranquilo. Pero no entiendo o sea, tú al final estás como que, o sea, lo que entiendo es que tú quieres como un internet ilimitado y más rápido por sin card de turista.
A través de
All right.
la SIM-card de turista que tiene un mayor plan, no sé si pueda, ¿cómo te digo? Reunir varias y con eso hacer el balanceo de carga y ahí hemos tenido mejores velocidades. Tenemos videos montados, ahí tú puedes observar cuáles son los resultados que tuvimos la vez pasada y estos son los resultados la semana pasada.
A ver, amigo, te digo, disculpa tú, man, sorry. We are having an interesting conversation, so if you are, I can continue or you want to.
Oh,
Okay,
he
he's
dropped
gone.
out. I guess for now, kind of catch us up on what did he have any good responses to?
No, I was trying to go to the chase with the answer, sorry, and he was like he was like talking with a robot. I was asking he about what were the main reasons behind that, and he was like giving me a lot of technical details, and I was like, bro, okay, but why you are doing that?
Right.
So he's basically describing that he can get almost unlimited internet using tourist SIM cards. That first time I heard about those SIM cards. For the I don't want to be I don't want to be like don't know how to say in English, like no quiero discriminar, no quiero eso, but for the tone that he uses to speak. I don't want
Bro.
to be I don't want to be
Oh, he's getting
bro, you what? Del carajo, hermano. So he's trying to get apparently limited internet using tourist cards. That first time I heard from those cards. I have been in Cuba for more than 20 years coming and going. So I guess I have some insight. I work daily basic with internet here. First time I heard about it. The other point he talked. The other point he referred was that he was using like a system to increase the internet speed.
Mm-hmm.
And that okay, yeah, you have more internet speed. Okay, yeah, good. What on what that helps with your annual status or stuff like Monero can provide. On what helps on daily basis more internet speed. So Cuban Warrior, you can hear me? ¿Me puedes oír, Cuban Warrior? No.
Cuban Warrior, you're muted. Maybe give him one last chance, one more kind of interaction there for him to kind of summarize what he sees as being the utility with the system versus what Cuban people can already access.
Exactly. Cuban Warrior, ¿me puedes escuchar?
Sí, hermano, te escucho.
Entonces, disculpa, ya por lo que he podido coger la conversación es que tú estás haciendo esto para tener internet limitado y más rápido. Internet limitado, vamos a ir un poco al grano, disculpa, porque también tengo que trabajar y eso. Y internet limitado usando las tarjetas de turista, que te digo, disculpa, primera vez que escucho de ella, y yo soy cubano también, y llevo fuera del país un tiempo, he ido virado, pero no sé, tengo 30 años, brother, no, primera vez que lo escucho.
Yo lo entiendo, pero eso queda de tu parte también averiguarlo. Yo tampoco te tengo que decir todas las técnicas que puedo utilizar para desarrollar el proyecto. Que yo veo una utilidad en Monero, que yo veo la utilidad de Tor, que yo veo la utilidad para la privacidad de las personas y dar a conocer la criptomoneda, es una forma de hacerlo. Que tú pienses de que el plan está sobrevaluado o algo así, es otra cosa tuya.
No, aquí estamos hablando normal, o sea, estamos tratando de entender tu punto para así si puedo defenderte de esta gente también, pero tengo que entenderlo para poder, porque a mí la parte que no me queda clara es la necesidad de tener una red más rápida, que vea, más rápida sí si tú vas a dar un servicio, más rápida y usando SIM card de extranjeros cuando tú simplemente puedes coger y, eso mismo que tú estás haciendo y hacerlo con la SIM cubana que tienes hoy. Porque eso mismo que estás haciendo que tú quieres hacer con la SIM de turista, que repito, primera vez que yo escucho eso, y yo he trabajado en su momento, trabajé con el turismo también y nunca escuché de SIM para turistas. Nunca escuché en ninguno de los hoteles Meliá ni nada por el estilo que se le diera SIM a turista. De hecho, lo que se usa es Wi-Fi. Había en su momento un run con las tarjetas rusas, pero eso también murió en su momento. Murió en el 2008, murió en el 2009, creo. Entonces, o sea, estás hablando con... no soy un experto, pero bueno, sé algo del tema. Entonces, entiendo la parte de la velocidad, que bueno, está bien. Yo estoy hablando contigo ahora mismo usando mi conexión LTE con un VPN inclusive, o sea que me reduce la velocidad de internet. Y yo no tengo tarjeta extranjera. O sea, yo tengo
papá.
Entonces, y la otra parte que no entiendo es la parte del anonimato, que era algo que tú querías también como que usar para Monero. Si yo puedo hablar contigo aquí y tú no sabes quién yo soy, ni yo sé quién tú eres.
Pero
Tampoco nos saben
podemos ser traqueados fácilmente. Nosotros utilizamos una
traqueado.
técnica de pivote de celda. En el pivote de celda, tú estás conectado un momento en una, saltas a la otra. Trabajamos con celdas fronterizas, trabajamos con celdas que no están conectadas directamente a la red LTE. Posiblemente tú ignoras ciertos detalles técnicos y por eso es que tú crees, o sea, estás incrédulo hasta esto, no sé.
No, lo que no veo es la necesidad del anonimato, ¿me entiendes? O sea, perdón, el anonimato siempre uno quiere tener. No veo la necesidad de buscar el anonimato cuando ya tú tienes el anonimato ya montado en tu propio teléfono. Tú con poner un VPN estás en un lugar en otro. Que tú quieras que, si tú lo quieres, por ejemplo, esconder las antenas supuestamente de la fuerza del Estado, bueno, tú sabes que al final eso es más fácil todavía, te cogen por una señora del CR que dice una cosa que otra, y eso al final no, tampoco están
Es que
así.
para eso también te puedo preparar. No sé si tú has visto el rollo de cable de CAT6 que tenemos por ahí. Eso es para esconder también las antenas. Nosotros no somos tontos, no somos...
Yo estuve en la red de La Habana como 10 años y yo vi tantas formas de esconder las redes y al final siempre las cogían. Entonces no entiendo. No entiendo.
Hermano, si yo me voy a rendir frente a esta adversidad, no puedo hacer nada. Tú tienes un punto de vista que tú crees que no puedes serlo porque no tienes quizás el coraje o quieres arriesgarte. De mi manera de verlo, yo lo tengo otro punto.
No, a ver, esto no es una cuestión de coraje o no, porque realmente aquí no estamos hablando de nada de hacer algo por el estilo. Yo simplemente soy una persona que está aquí hablando contigo, que está trabajando, que después de terminar de hablar contigo, se pone a trabajar y sigue su vida normal. O sea, no entiendo. O sea, realmente para mí, por ejemplo, con toma de trabajo que...
O sea, pero tú partes del punto de que cualquiera lo puede atrapar y cualquiera no puede quitar las antenas. Yo también siento que si te riesgo, el riesgo está ahí, pero si no lo hago yo, no lo puede hacer más nadie o lo puede hacer otro. Yo lo estoy intentando. Si tú crees que mi intento es fallido, es otra cosa.
No, yo lo que creo que el intento, con todo el respeto, estás como que queriendo hacer algo que se puede hacer perfectamente con un nano y con una conexión, porque si tú pones un nano en tu casa, nadie te va a venir a preguntar por el nano, como mismo tampoco ahora mismo te van a preguntar por nada, pero quieres montar como toda una infraestructura que veo como que sobra hacer. Ya, la nota muy cubano.
Bueno, ese es otro punto de vista. Hay varios, o sea, tú tienes una perspectiva de mi proyecto, yo tengo una perspectiva de lo que yo estoy haciendo. Ahí describo cada uno de los pasos, he descrito 3 planes diferentes, estoy conjugando uno para hacerlo cerca de una escuela. Es tu punto de vista. Si tú quieres apoyar mi proyecto, bien. Si no lo quieres apoyar, no pasa nada.
Ya, ok. A ver.
Any update here? Give us some.
A ver, he's defending his point. I don't have any idea of tourist cars. I don't see the point also of having a better internet that if not for a commercial thing. He's saying that he's doing for a purpose of defending something or doing something that I can imply that is political, do not. But for me, it's a scam like any other. So, and this is my personal take. This is the personal take of a Cuban that living in Cuba time to time that knows that know how this world that is not biased for politics. So you guys can take my point. You guys can.
What would you recommend to him to do to maybe perhaps better communicate what he's achieved and what he's intending to do, just to kind of give him a fair chance at proving to the people that he's doing something valuable?
Timan, you're asking me how he can scam you is better. So
all right, well we'll leave it there. We've heard the sides. Tux, you got any comments here?
Not really. I think I've been able to understand the conversation a bit.
Yeah.
But I think I get the gist.
I wanted to let you guys talk and air it out. Monero, I guess we're gonna leave it there. We're gonna move. We'll move on. Does he have any final things he wants to say? Anything he wants to throw out there?
Gracias por la oportunidad. Lamento que no haya sido una entrevista, sino que un juzgado lamento que me hayan juzgado de una manera cuando estoy trabajando sobre esto. Cada quien tiene su punto de vista. Muchas gracias por todo, amigos. Hasta luego.
Bueno, amigo.
What did you say?
Thanks for everything. Sorry that this was more a jury than an invitation.
More of what?
More or less.
Okay, I don't know.
He was judged like going to a to a trial. Sorry.
Wasn't a trial. It was a discussion. This is what we do, right? So we're not here to just falsely promote anyone. When you come up on the show and you have an idea or a concept or anything, expect people to respond to it and ask you the tough questions, no matter what it is you're talking about. I mean, this is we're free speech maximalists, but that doesn't mean we're not here to not respond to what it is people are saying. We want to let people get the word out on things, but we also want to properly vet things as well as they're being discussed. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thanks, man. Appreciate you jumping up.
Anytime, man.
Thanks, Nando and Seafolk, for both coming on.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll move on. Good job, man. Good job. I appreciate it.
I think you're still sharing the screen.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. I mean, is it a scam?
We're back to the square one, basically.
Well, it's up. It's up
we
to
know
people
a little bit
to
more.
decide now, right?
Yeah, I think people
can make their own assessment now, perhaps a better one, given this new information that they have. So, proceed at your own risk, as always on Kuno and with anything in Monero, right?
If anyone who's speaking Spanish, feel free to TLDR that for us gringos.
Don't trust, verify.
All right.
Alrighty.
Let's moving on to the news, right?
Let's do it. Let's do the news. Then we'll get viewers on stage.
And now for our weekly news segment.
All right.
Yeah.
So, first article is in ARS Techno 1. I think I saw this on Hacker News this morning. Suspects can refuse to provide phone passcodes to police, court rules. So, criminal suspects can refuse to provide phone passcodes to police under U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, according to a unanimous ruling issued today by Utah's State Supreme Court. The question addressed in the ruling could eventually be taken up by the U.S. Supreme Court, whether through review of this case or a similar one. So that is definitely good for people who want to, not self-incriminate, protect their privacy. Even if you have nothing, even if you're totally innocent, you're not breaking any laws, you shouldn't have to unlock your phone to let, you shouldn't have to be compelled to do that. Just simply unlock your phone so that police can look into it.
Yeah,
especially without being charged with anything or without any warrant. It's like the police coming into your house without a warrant, right?
Right.
And so this Utah court basically protected their Fifth Amendment right of not having to self-incriminate themselves.
Yeah, I wonder how that compares to like federal issues, like when you're going through crossing the border. Right, there's been some instances there, right, where people's phones get taken, and then if they're locked, I think they can.
It's even more interesting about this case is that they did actually have a warrant, and so this case involves, in Alfonso Valdez, who was arrested for kidnapping and assaulting his ex-girlfriend. Police officers obtained a search warrant for the contents of Valdez's phone but couldn't crack his passcode. Valdez refused to provide his passcode to a police detective. At his trial, the state elicited testimony from the detective about Valdez's refusal to provide his passcode when asked. Today's ruling said, and during closing arguments, the state argued in rebuttal that Valdez's refusal and resulting lack of evidence from his cell phone undermined the veracity of one of his defenses. The jury convicted Valdez. A court of appeals reserved the conviction, agreeing with Valdez that he had the right under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution to refuse to provide his passcode, and that the state violated that right when it used his refusal against him in trial. The Utah Supreme Court affirmed the Court of the Appeals ruling. It goes even a little bit further. Yeah, so it would be interesting to see if something like this went to the Supreme Court. Hopefully, they would have a similar opinion on that. But
All right, good stuff.
yeah,
Step in the right direction.
next up, a tweet from Elon Musk. Apparently, Microsoft Word now scolds you if you use words that aren't inclusive. So, according to some new settings in Microsoft Word in the editor settings, there's now a thing on that will check words for inclusiveness. So, insane is not inclusive enough. So, you can't use the word insane, according
This
to
is
Microsoft Word.
It's going to be scary, right? Once everybody is using AI, and then AI is also going by these type of algorithms, right?
So now you could see aside to all the other normal options you would have on any other word editor, there's one called inclusiveness. And Elon Musk is ironically calling out Community Notes, which he created for being wrong. They said Community Notes said this feature has been available in Microsoft Word since at least 2020 and has to be turned on manually. But I guess Elon Musk didn't turn this on, and it was on by default for him. So they're probably doing a thing where they're switching that to be on by default. I'm not sure. Yeah, weird stuff. Next up, the Prime Minister of Montenegro now owns Bitcoin. I guess that's interesting.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I just pulled all these news as what was sent to me. Yeah, I mean, he probably is rich enough to be able to actually use Bitcoin, unlike all of us plebeians.
Okay. What is this one?
A CNN article about limiting how often people can travel with carbon passports. So more control under the guise of climate change and global warming and stuff.
Yes. You'll be happy and own nothing. Okay.
I will not eat the bugs. This is one that I think you sent. Warren's crypto bill is likely unconstitutional. It's also unlikely to pass. Democrat lawmakers signed on to sponsor the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act. The bill is bad for crypto in the U.S., even if it never gets through Congress, as we've seen with pressure that companies seem to fold to before regulation is even passed. Senator Warren is trying to force feed the American people a poison pill. High-profile legislator known today as much for her disdain of cryptocurrency as for big banks has submitted a bill for consideration looking to crack down on crypto's alleged use in illicit finance. So it's just going to talk about the act that she's sponsoring, and
she's basically looking to expand the Bank Secrecy Act, right? And
into like more of a expand it and add it to the crypto sector.
Right. So they would treat crypto like any other banking activity with the Know Your Customer, KYC, AML. All transactions essentially have to be, over a certain threshold. You'll have to do reporting and things like that. But to the degree that they would label nodes and miners and unhosted wallets as essentially money service providers, right? Essentially is I think that the gist of the bill and its most crazy interpretation.
It's U.S. is just becoming more and more hostile towards cryptocurrencies, and unfortunately,
it's saying here that it's unlikely that it would pass, right? What was the reasoning they gave there?
Let me see. I didn't have a chance to read through this whole article.
Wait, here it is. That said, Warren's bill as it exists is unlikely to pass for many of the same reasons U.S. governance is often hamstrung: partisan politics, infighting, and gridlock. Yeah, there just won't be enough.
But as we've seen with recent events, just the threat of regulation that isn't even passed is enough for companies to be compelled to change the way they work and what they offer, which is unfortunate. But that's just how it is.
Yep. Well, interesting that she's trying so hard, but hopefully she won't have her way.
So this was crazy story this week. By approving unconstitutional warrantless surveillance of Americans that betrayed the American people, we've included a list of all the representatives who voted to pass the National Defense Authorization Act with FISA 702. So this was a big thing this week where there were votes coming up for the NDAA with the FISA 702. And everyone was telling people to call their senators, call their reps. But unfortunately, this passed pretty bipartisan. And
do you have that YouTube clip that I sent you? If we could play part of that.
The Rand Paul. Yeah. Let me pull
so
it up.
Rand Paul is obviously one of the guys that didn't vote for this, but he explains what this is all about. This is something that they slipped into a much larger.
Yep, they slipped into a much larger bill.
Extending FISA. But if you play his clip, it's long. You could start at the beginning.
Okay.
And he'll start to explain what the FISA extension even is.
During the 1960s, the FBI spied on Martin Luther King and other civil rights protesters. The FBI spied on Vietnam War protesters. The Church Committee was formed in the 1970s and detailed these abuses. And the response by Congress was to pass something called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA. FISA was ostensibly passed to limit spying on Americans. It was supposed to be a reform. But as far as the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act allows government to spy on U.S. citizens without a warrant, it is unconstitutional. As Dr. John Tyler from Houston Christian University points out, the FISA text, the Constitution's text, and the relevant opinions by the U.S. Supreme Court conclusively demonstrate that FISA and its secret ex parte, meaning you only hear from one side in the court, these courts are unconstitutional for three reasons. First, the secret ex parte courts violate the case or controversy requirement of Article 3. Courts are about deciding disputes between two parties. They aren't originated just to say, this is a pronouncement, there has to be a dispute. And in the FISA court, it's more about having a generalized comment. Second, FISA violates the Fourth Amendment liberties from unreasonable searches and seizures. Third, FISA and its secret ex parte courts violate the due process guarantees of the Fifth and the 14th Amendment. Dr. Tyler goes on to say that lastly, the Supreme Court has ruled that national security does not require secret courts or justify ignoring the Fourth Amendment liberties. This unconstitutional government spying has been further authorized by adding Section 702 to FISA. That law entrusts America's intelligence agencies with broad authorities, supposedly to surveil foreigners abroad. But time has proven again and again that America's intelligence agencies cannot be trusted with this immense power and responsibility. Section 702 expires at the end of this year. We've known this for 5 years, and yet somehow the Senate has no time to debate this and wishes to simply extend it. Members of Congress anticipated using this deadline as an opportunity not just to make meaningful changes, but to reform FISA generally to better protect American civil liberties. But it doesn't appear to be allowed to happen at this point. Everything's rush, rush, rush. Let's pass it without debate. But they've known for 5 years it was going to expire at the end of this year, and yet they just want to punt it with the hope that they'll never have to debate it. Extending this Section 702 robs Congress of the ability to make reforms now and likely robs Congress of the opportunity to make reforms anytime in the next year. That means that once again, the intelligence agencies that ignore the constraints on their power will go unaddressed and unpunished. And the warrantless surveillance of Americans in violation of the Bill of Rights will continue.
All right, we can leave it there.
702.
All right.
Yeah, so basically they snuck in this extension of 702, Section 702 of FISA, which is going to allow the intelligence agencies to continue to illegally, effectively spy on Americans by way of...
It extends their surveillance, or warrantless surveillance, and expands it. So, yeah, pretty grim.
What's crazy shows you how absurd, how useful or useless all these legislators are, and they're effectively all bought out. None of them are independent minded. Obviously, Senator Rand Paul is the exception, right? Kudos to him. This guy's amazing.
Yeah, Rand Paul's
But all the rest, pretty much, they just go along with their political party, how they're told to vote. Most of them don't even have time to try to even figure out what these issues are or know about them. Or
I mean, it's kind of like that on purpose. They'll sneak something in and they'll make it hard it's too much to like understand in such a short amount of time.
I mean, so the irony here is, right, we were just talking about Senator Warren and how she's trying to push this other bill that would effectively ban crypto, right? And so she's evil Senator Warren. But then if you look, I think she's one of the people that actually voted against this. Now, I don't think she voted against it for purposes of that she was against extending FISA 702. She probably voted against it because she disagreed with other elements of this bill. But it just shows you how broken the entire system is, right? So you have
Warren's not on here.
She voted against it. So all right, maybe we love Senator Warren. She voted against this bill that would have extended 702 of FISA. So like, how do you even as a legislator pick and choose what you vote on when essentially every single bill comes with a bunch of crap in it that is completely like freaking unconstitutional? Like, you'd have to be voting no to everything essentially if you want to do your job.
Is this including House and Senate, or is this just House?
I don't know.
It doesn't say. It doesn't say. This might just be the House.
Yeah,
it might be both. I'd have to see a total number. But yeah, your point is definitely valid on that. It's just.
So yeah, that's why we crypto guys. We're opting out because to try to change things. I mean, we could try to change things as well, but it's better to just ignore, opt out, build our own system.
Yeah, like, do as much as you can here, but like at some point, it's just there's nothing you can do. Not to be like grim and doomer, but there's only. And not that you shouldn't try, but there's only so much you can do, like within the broken system.
Right.
So, so this is also a crazy story this week. With everyone I'm sure heard about this. Wallet drainer code added to Ledger library has crypto on edge. A suspected supply chain attack on Ledger ConnectKit may leave dApp users open to loss of funds. Users of crypto web apps are being warned to avoid the platforms until investigations into a potential cybersecurity incident affecting hardware wallet Ledger play out. Notices of malicious code were shared on social media Thursday morning, found in software libraries for Ledger's ConnectKit, which connects blockchain apps with Ledger devices. Web3-focused cybersecurity firm Blockade told Blockworks that so far at least $150,000 has been lost as a result of a malicious code slipping into websites in production. Ledger users are not at risk if they refrain from transacting, the firm said. It is not exploitable on prior approvals. The CEO told Blockworks, noting that many websites are still affected and users are getting hit, so the damage may be more severe. So essentially, from what I can remember, doesn't look like they mentioned here. So they use something called NPM, which is Node Package Manager, which is a package manager for Node.js applications. And NPM can be dangerous because dependencies are like auto updating, and some dependencies can be pulled, like latest versions be pulled live. And so what happened is they didn't lock a dependency version, and there was a supply chain attack where some package dependency they were using, like some library for something, right? They were using had a new version that came out that was malicious, but because they didn't lock the previous version that they were on that was known good, this new version came in and had malware and ended up affecting this application, if that makes sense.
What does this mean for hardware wallets in general, you think?
This is for hardware wallets in general. I don't think it really means anything because this is with Ledger's ConnectKit, which is connecting with dApps. And this doesn't.
Just shouldn't have all that junk in there in the first place.
Yeah, as far as from what I understand, this isn't anything on the actual hardware wallet part, but it's with their part where they connect to like Ethereum dApps basically. And so there was malicious code that was, I guess, stealing people's funds. Yeah, so they're saying do not interact with any dApps for the moment. We'll keep users informed as the situation evolves. Ledger devices, Ledger Live. Yeah, see, Ledger devices and Ledger Live are not compromised. So there's that part.
Okay.
So yeah,
Be
it's
careful out there,
software
folks.
where people are being careless with how it was set up and security and stuff. And I think, let me see if I can pull it up, but South for Privacy had a great, as always, had a great thread about that.
Yeah, I sent you one other Seth post I wanted you to bring up as maybe the last story.
Yeah, I think that's the last one. Yep. So if it's not open source, it's not Freedom Tech. Shockingly, at Keystone. Oh, this is different. This is also interesting, but this is different. Let me see if I can find his. I'm pretty sure he had a tweet about it. Yep, here it is. Verify your transaction on screen with your hardware wallet or get wrecked. Being Bitcoin only doesn't fix this. Using multisig doesn't fix this. Air gap security model doesn't fix this. The real solution is users properly verifying transactions on their hardware wallet screen before signing, incentivizing security reviews and disclosures, devs pinning known good dependency versions, open sourcing all the things. The only thing you as a user have control over is number one. If you're using a hardware wallet without verifying transaction details, you're losing the vast majority of the benefit. If your wallet doesn't have a screen or encourages blind signing by not showing you all the relevant details, get a new one. Take the time to always verify transaction details before sending. It's worth a few seconds of your time. Ledger library confirmed, compromised, and replaced with a drainer. Wait out interacting with any dApps till this thing becomes clear. So yeah, it was an npm package that got a supply chain attack, basically through a dependency. It's that simple, but it's that big because people were careless and weren't pinning known good versions for something that requires so much security. So that shows carelessness on Ledger's part.
Sounds like people just shouldn't be using Ledger, right?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's not a whole ton of options for hardware wallets that also support.
We got some good Monero things coming down the pipe, though, right?
Yeah, we definitely do.
Seed Signer, right? We have the Sidekick. What else we got? We got a few things being worked on that are hardware wallet related, right?
I hope the Monero fork for the Foundation device would come out. That'd be interesting.
Oh, right, yeah. So
that's very much a side project. So
it would be Monero to get added to Foundation essentially, or somebody would create a new Foundation.
There'd be a custom firmware that supports Monero, basically.
That's cool.
Yeah. I got this last one here. Another good thread from Seth for Privacy. Privacy on Bitcoin is prohibitively expensive at the moment. Reran the numbers from my old comparing private spends blog post, and at a generously low 150 sats per byte, it would cost you $93.85 to take a coin, make it private, and spend it. That's wild.
That's the apples to apples comparison of Bitcoin versus Monero, right? So it costs you a fraction of a cent to send Monero, and it's fungible and private every time. If you want to do the same in Bitcoin, it's going to cost you $93 per transaction.
It's showing a median of 5.6 cents. But I've never spent more than 1 cent on a Monero transaction. Note that this isn't just about ordinals causing a fee increase and was always going to be an issue when it comes to requiring Bitcoin privacy to be done entirely at the application level. It just simply costs a lot to gain privacy today on Bitcoin. Note that the lowest possible cost for transaction flow in Bitcoin is 63 cents at 1 sat per byte. That's if you do slow. If you want full comparison between Bitcoin, Monero, and Zcash, you can read it all in my first ever blog post below. Put 210,000 sats into CoinJoin, get 100,000 back out. It's crazy. Privacy.
Yeah, I had Ragnar on Monero Talk this week. We were talking about his Finny forum and stuff. We had a great convo. He's pretty hardcore Monero these days, but he's an OG Bitcoiner. We had, I don't know, some stupid drama back in the past that caused him to block me for like three years. So I actually didn't know much about him. So it was a great convo because I got to learn about him because I never really saw him.
Well, at least you guys are able to connect.
But I was trying to because he comes from the Bitcoin. He's a big Bitcoin privacy community guy, right? And like my I wouldn't say gripe, but what I don't understand about the Bitcoin privacy stuff is like why put our efforts there if it's just broken and not working? If effectively you have to pay $100 per transaction in Bitcoin to turn it into fungible money or private money. Why is so much effort being put there and applauded for trying to make Bitcoin
Yeah.
private when it doesn't work? Like just move to Monero. Like,
I mean, even by itself, like just using Bitcoin non-privately is already prohibitively expensive for like almost like all of
Right.
the actual use cases you'd want to use for Monero or Bitcoin, which Monero is, provides actual value there. It's just
I gotta have the Samurai Wallet guys back on the show. I mean, I applaud them for all they do, their efforts. They, if you're gonna use Bitcoin, go down that route, right, to try to make it private. But I also just don't really understand why those efforts are even put in. I don't know.
I think it's starting to get like more and more diminishing as time goes on, these efforts for Bitcoin privacy, just as the blockchain itself becomes less and less usable, the returns are more and more diminishing. And like there's an understanding that Bitcoin's big, and trying to push privacy on Bitcoin is like could help the most amount of people, but the underlying system itself is just so broken, and people refuse to, it's like co-opted, and people refuse to actually improve the base layer. It's not going to help anything at this point.
But
and
if
as
you
you can see,
go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
it's not 90. No one's going to pay, no noob, right? No average person. If you're trying to reach more average people for privacy, it's going to pay $93 to make their Bitcoin private. It's just not happening.
Right. So yes, theoretically you could reach more people because there's a lot more Bitcoiners than Monero people. But the best thing to do would just to move those people into Monero, or get them to use Monero for these purposes, rather than using these workaround solutions. So like with Samurai, I know there was talk of adding Bitcoin to Monero atomic swaps. So actually, I think it's happening, but I think it's only for purposes of like obfuscating your toxic change, right? It's not like they're natively adding Monero and you could hold your Monero on the wallet and then you could swap in and out of Bitcoin to Monero. Like, I don't know why they just don't go all in and like promote Monero as the tool for privacy,
If they did that, I'd be a lot more interested.
Yeah. All right, man. Great stuff. Good job. Especially considering you were learning things as you were going through them.
Yeah, I almost never get to look at any of these before I just open them, and I'm just.
You're good, man. You're good.
You can tell. But yeah, that was pretty much it for the news this week.
Let's run viewers on stage. See if anybody wants to jump up. Let's throw the link in there. If anybody new wants to jump up on stage, everybody's always welcome, as long as you're not, spamming.
I'll probably need to leave in a few minutes, but I'll add everybody up that I can. And if you see anyone else hop in, you can just add them.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's run that.
It's the Viewers on Stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down.
Good morning, everyone.
Alaskan on. He's here.
What's going on?
Morning.
Hello, shortwave. Ooh, Ramsey.
Yo, yeah, I just want to say I think trying to put privacy on Bitcoin is just a fool's errand. I mean, it's Monero's designed for privacy at the base layer, and then there's like you just you use like regular cash, or I mean that's more private. Like if I don't know why you would try to do that. Just seems stupid to me.
I have actually two reasons why it would be very valuable.
Oh,
but
okay.
I realize it's kind of outside of the norm of the way that a lot of people think about these things. But the first thing is Bitcoin represents, I call it a normalcy bias shield for Monero. And what I mean by that is since 2009, Bitcoin has been doing the work of creating a normalcy bias for crypto. So people are used to the idea of there being this crypto and watching the prices on, these fake stock market pump and dump, this endless chain of events that goes on. And they're being told over and over again by their slave taskmaster overlords about the dangers of like private transactions outside of the banking system and so on. And yet they're watching it being traded and they're watching it become normal and all of that stuff. So it kind of does a lot of the work for people who are actual privacy enthusiasts, that it's becoming normal for people to have a parallel economy with parallel currencies. And that works in tandem with the second part of this, which is a survival instinct layer. So I was just at a local business here in Alaska, and this person who owns and runs the business and does all the books for it was explaining to me how much she spends at the federal, state, and local level in taxes, and talking about how there is absolutely no way a person can survive long term with the kind of numbers that are being imposed on her. And I talked to her about the value of parallel economies. And this particular woman can't even use a smartphone. But when I told her the advantages of a parallel economy and how it could fit into her business, she became like the world's fastest tech enthusiast, Monero adopter, all of these other things. But part of the reason why that was possible is because she's heard about Bitcoin, right? And to her, it was just a big scam. And a lot of the people on this show have heard me do the rant about how a person can quickly teach somebody how blockchain works with what they're used to already. And the thing is those two things in tandem, a person's survival instinct, like they normally want to play by the rules, but when it becomes impossible to play by the rules and you still have to feed yourself, they're going to look for ways out of the system. And then the second thing is, when you have something that you've been hearing about for over a decade now, this like nebulous world of crypto and how people are already using it and how a bunch of people made a bunch of money off of it, and the government is afraid because they can't control it. Those two ideas have now been planted for so long. And the last thing is Bitcoin privacy is not about how much money you can save or spend or it costs. It's about on-ramps, right? And as those on-ramps become tighter and tighter and tighter, you're going to find a situation like the gamblers in Argentina, where they're like, well, this stuff is useful now, and getting in and out of it is a worthless pain in the ass. Why the hell don't we just use it, right? And so the later and later adopters are basically footing the bill to keep the on-ramps in place long enough for the Johnny-come-latelys to at least have some way on and off. But in reality, the closing of that on-ramp is what locks people into the freedom on the other side, which is the government itself is, or in this case, Bitcoin government, is what's locking people out of the on-ramp. And so they're the bad guys, right? So that's kind of my take on the whole Bitcoin privacy thing. Is this was destined to happen no matter what. I mean, Michael Penn remembers the blockchain, the size wars and all of that. I mean, people were predicting this back in 2013, that this was going to be an impossible situation for Bitcoin. It was already dead on arrival. Bitcoin Cash, Monero, and some other people had figured out the right answer, and now we are seeing those things play out.
I honestly think that Dogecoin has done as much to normalize cryptocurrency for the average person, because you're like, oh, it's a distributed currency, whatever, and then you're like, wait, no, it's dog themed, and then suddenly people are like, oh, it's dog themed, like I'm into this. And Dogecoin actually has a linear inflation rate in the same way Monero does, and actually for that reason it might outlast Bitcoin, and has a smaller block size. So there are actual things that are better about Dogecoin than Bitcoin, in my opinion.
Any of the devs in the Dogecoin community talk about adding privacy? If anybody knows?
Yeah, I think Litecoin did like a Mimblewimble implementation, and I think Dogecoin could implement something similar.
So I thought it was interesting on the topic of the mesh net in Cuba. I think it's kind of one of those situations where a guy can't see the forest through the trees who has been in Cuba and is able to use the internet and all of that. I realize that the same ISP is the same ISP. But you could kind of think of it like a Mexican standoff, right? Where everybody's got everybody else has a gun to their head, right? And it's a big circle of what a mesh net does is it forces all or nothing behaviors on the ISP. So either you shut off the internet, or these people who are using Tor and other obfuscation methods that are way more private than just using a VPN. People who are using the LTE network instead of, wired connections. You basically put in the situation where you either have to turn the entire internet off, or you have to let the traffic of the true privacy enthusiasts through. And another thing is, mesh networks allow other options for local networks. So in other words, if you have alternative, let's call it intranet, right? If you have within Cuba intranet through many different mechanisms, what you're doing is you're creating, it's not user friendly, right? You're creating this for probably a few hundred people. But those few hundred people have a way to communicate outside of the system within Cuba. And another thing is the idea that traffic in and out of Cuba using a VPN, that you can't figure out who is doing what. You may not be able to get all of the data out of it, or it does add a layer of complexity. But a VPN is not going to do the job for like an anti-state actor or somebody who's trying to do business outside of the tax system, versus this idea of a mesh net using Tor on the LTE network. You are making it nearly impossible to chase down taxes. You are making it nearly impossible to figure out if somebody's talking about, things that you don't want to say on YouTube, or if they're talking about like, hey, pick up some bananas on your way home, right? So I actually do still see a lot of utility, but that's because I probably don't trust the government a hell of a lot more than, the guy who was saying, why not just use a VPN? But that is also true. Like the fiscal implications of spending thousands and thousands of dollars in a country as poor as Cuba, it has its own drawbacks, right? Because like, what's the point of having all of this freedom if you can't get anything, right? So, but they kind of go together, right? And in the grand scheme of things, 12 grand is a drop in the bucket. So.
All right. Yeah, no, I'm glad you got those points out there. So you see some validity in his projects.
My complaint from the beginning is it's really hard to know if he's actually doing what he says he's doing.
You're right. Exactly.
That's the thing about anonymity, right? Is like, I would love to have a system where at least somebody from the community could vet it or whatever, but at the cost of like making it obvious who's doing it to the state actors. I would almost rather gamble on it and keep the dude who claims he's trying anonymous, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but the threshold is so low there, it becomes so easy to just, scam.
Yeah, I see his point with the whole like you want to do something, and the only way to prove that you're going to do it is for somebody to take a risk and then like have it to be done. So like if you're running a company and I say that I'm going to give you this thing for this much Monero, the only way that you can trust me being anonymous is if you give me the thing first, and then I send you the thing I told you I was going to send you. So it's a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah, maybe he could do a better job though, like showing what he's actually implemented. I don't know what he can do, but
I missed that part of the segment, but I think through like creativity and what's the word? Like ingenuity. What's that? There's ways to establish trust. Like, I don't know if he has a site on Tor there's like secure ways to present information to build trust potentially through like innovative means. And I don't know if any of those are being implemented. So I don't.
Good point. Good point. I don't know what exactly he could do though, or what he should do. I don't know. Alaska, any thoughts there? Like, how could he better prove to us that he's actually implemented these things?
I mean, a really good way, a good way that would be doable is to send a picture and then respond to somebody on like what is it, Dredge, the front page of the dark web, or somebody can make a post and he has to write it by hand on a postcard and then take the same picture again. And like, there's like a time window to it. Or, I mean, there's like, people have done this on the dark web for years, like coming up with like on the spot ways. So you can't game it out ahead of time. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cuban Warrior is familiar with a lot of these ways, like, for example, putting a timestamp and the anonymously generated address of the person who requested that you put the timestamp on, right? So you can't do it ahead of time, and it has to be handwritten, and then you can look for evidence of even AI and stuff from the handwriting. So there was one other thing that I thought was, like, Tux tried to bring it up, but it was a little overlooked when we were talking about, like, oh, it's probably not constitutional, these anti-crypto laws that all of our lizard people were trying to tell us that we had to abide by or whatever. The model for regulating like all of this stuff switched many years ago to fines instead of regulation. You create all of these bureaucracies and they just fine you and lawfare you to death. And actually proposing legislation is the warning shot, right? So they say that they're proposing legislation and they have actually no intention of even like making the legislation. Because remember, they want to launder their ill-gotten gains. They don't want there to actually be a law that would hold them accountable, right? But they use the idea of the law to, number one, drive down prices, get a lower price for their own on-ramping. But then the other thing is, it's like a warning shot to certain people, like, comply with giving us this data outside of the law, or the bureaucrats are going to come and fine you to death, right? And we've already seen some of that, because it appears to me that a lot of the crypto exchange people, they were like hardcore, freedom enthusiasts, and then, well, onboard this insider or you're not going to be allowed to do business. And then they do that. Now all of a sudden you have like the guy from MasterCard and the guy from JP Morgan and on all of these boards. And they're like, okay, we'll give you a bunch of money for the liquidity of your exchange so you can be the only game in town, but you're going to be personally on the hook for all of its liabilities or whatever. And then the next one becomes, okay, we're going to manipulate the prices together. And then the next one becomes, you're either going to give us the data or we're going to kill your kids, right? Like that. So there's like this escalating process of like pigeonholing people who might be who wanted to just create an exchange so that you could get in and out of the currency. And now all of a sudden you're one of the bad guys, like gatekeeping everybody from being free, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize like the natural progression. But the thing is we are now at the point where the exchanges are being warned, we are going to fine you to death and leave you on the hook for all of the liabilities. And this is us showing you that, we could just put laws in place or whatever, unless you, I don't know, maybe shut down Monero swaps for 18 hours and then also prevent another guy from getting Monero for 1 hour. I mean, these are just examples. Who knows if that actually happened, last week or whatever.
Well, I mean, forget the constitutionality of what she's proposing. I mean, the entire Bank Secrecy Act is very arguably unconstitutional, right?
Well, they don't need it anymore. They haven't needed it for what, well, I mean, Michael might have a better estimate, but like 7 years at least, because now the entrenched bureaucracy has survived to the point where they can just fine you to death, and whether or not the fines even get paid or not, they can also leverage like bank accounts to hold money until either the fines are paid or the case is dismissed, or they can lock up your capital without any laws now. So it doesn't, like none of that stuff even matters, which is why the freedom enthusiasts are being presented with the fight at this stage, right? Because it's already pointless. And that's part of the reason why the freedom enthusiast people need to actually understand how the game is played, because they're always fighting the battle from 20 years ago, and it's being done that way on purpose. So like the real fight right now, I mean, a lot of the people in this chat, like they get it. The real fight right now is to have a parallel economy, right? The bad guys are literally already setting up their parallel economy. You know, one of the things about like the carbon passports and the CBDCs and all of that stuff, like the entire premise is they also need a parallel economy, and they want their hands on the control levers, right? We all know it. But then it's like, hey, go fight about this thing that is like 20 years old and pointless, the Bank Secrecy Act. Nobody cares about the laws anymore. I mean, think about it. Like I was just saying with the survival instincts of the businesses, they're already going to quit obeying the law. And there's entire massive algorithms that exist that have made the powers that be aware, yeah, nobody's going to give a shit about the law anymore coming up in, I mean, it could be months, honestly, if they decide to pull the plug on the fiat Fed notes here pretty soon, which I don't know that they are or not. I'm not one of those guys, but as soon as they pull the plug on that, they know nobody's going to care about the law anymore. So the question is our system going to be in place, or is the survival instinct going to move them to the parallel economies?
I think that the centralized crypto exchanges were a mistake of history. It's just now that we have decentralized exchanges, I don't see why there's any reason to use them. It was just, kind of a way to make it easier for onboarding people initially.
It was like the AOL of the internet, or the centralized.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Anything else, guys? Otherwise, we could call it here. Anything else?
Yeah, I've got one thing about this. The ConnectKit with the ledgers. They say to check your screen on your ledger and make sure that the address you're sending to is actually valid. And a lot of people don't do that for whatever reason. And what I always do when I'm sending a transaction is I check the addresses, like the last 5 or 6 of the address. I don't check the entire dang thing, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But I do check the last 5 or 6. Because it's easy to generate an address beginning with the same characters, but it is not easy to generate an address ending with the same characters. Because then you've got to generate the entire address. So like with Tor identities, for example, you can generate a Tor identity that looks like the same as Dread's first, say, 10 characters, but you can't generate the same address ending with the last 10 characters very easily at all. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I naturally do that anyway with any Monero transactions. I always check the end of the address, the last 5 characters.
Yeah, I always do like 5.
Can I just point out that like this is another example though of unintentional gatekeeping. And what I mean by that is outsiders coming into the system who haven't been evolving with these systems have no fucking clue what this guy just said. You know what I'm saying? Like, shortwave, he's been doing this stuff. He gets it. Like, all of us, we've been using Monero. We get it. But like, this is one of the problems that like we keep accelerating, like next iteration of hardware wallet, and it's this never-ending arms race of complexity that literally is just cock blocking anybody who wants to get into the space.
That's why the ETFs are important, is because if they bring an ETF, then you can suddenly buy it on any bank account, any brokerage. You can suddenly get exposure to. I mean, you can already the MicroStrategy stock essentially functions as a bit unregulated Bitcoin ETF. Like they're upset with Michael Saylor for doing that, and who knows? Maybe there'll be something like that for Ethereum or other currencies.
You know, and this isn't meant to be a plug for Cake Wallet, but like it's like nobody has been focusing on how do we make it possible for a guy to use Monero without being a fucking engineer. You know, it's like the only people who do it, like there's a couple of people, right? But like, you know, that's one of the reasons why I love Cake Wallet. But the thing is every one of these like next iteration on top of next iteration is adding layers of complexity on the engineering side for people like Cake Wallet, just to keep the app working for people who are like, yeah, I downloaded it to my iPhone so I could buy pizza or whatever, right? Like and the problem that I see with crypto in general is the higher level engineers need to be focusing more on how easy is it for a guy to download an app and buy a pizza, right? That's it. Like that used to be the goal, right? That's where the Bitcoin pizza thing came from, was a bunch of people wanted to buy pizza and they bought it with Bitcoin, right? And then people are like, oh, Bitcoin pizza is now worth blah, blah, blah. It's like, I think you missed the point. The point is they bought a pizza like back in, what was it, 2010? You know, like they were already using it to buy stuff in 2010. Why is it so hard to buy stuff in 2020, almost 4, right?
Good point.
Good points. Remsey, I like your points with MicroStrategy as well. Maybe Monero Talk LLC can be the unofficial ETF of Monero once we go public.
Just find some company. There's some shell companies out there that's publicly traded. That's what his company was nothing until he started buying Bitcoin and became an unregulated Bitcoin ETF.
Monero Talk LLC. We're already all Monero, right? So we just got to go public now.
I've got a couple of shell companies we could take public.
Or a SPAC.
I'd be willing to give away.
All right, guys, we'll end it here. Thanks as always. I thought this was a great show. I hope we didn't go too hard on Cuban Warrior, but this is what we got to do. We got to suss things out, right? So I think Kuno, like I said, is amazing. I love Kuno. I agree with Alaska in terms of we've got to be careful. We don't want to make it difficult for people to use Kuno for these purposes where they need to stay anonymous and protected. But at the same time, we got to try to figure out which ones are the scams and which ones aren't. I'm not saying his is, but we put more information out there so people can further decide, because they've already raised quite a bit of money. But maybe it's legit. Maybe he's building the stuff. Maybe it's not as valuable as he may propose. Maybe there are other ways of already doing things down there. But if he's actually doing it, I think it's an interesting project. But we don't know. That's up for the individual user to decide. But we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, guys. We do these shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and thanks to everybody that participates. Cheers. Later, guys. Oh, let me run the outro. If I can find it. Here we go. All right, later, guys.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group. See you all next week.
All right, guys.
Thanks for the show, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks for always
try to get a hold of you, Shortwave. Contact at feeder8.me. Is that an email address?
That's an email address. Yeah, it's federate.me. And
it's nice. I didn't even know that existed. The name says it all, right?
It's my own personal email domain. Actually, I'm using Proton Mail. And what I do is I just had them take my domain and use that as my email address.
Right on. Well, I'm using Toot, so you'll hear from me in a little bit.
All right, and then we can use Simplex or something for more real-time chats.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Molly guy.
Oh, I use
Like,
Molly.
Yeah, so I'll get you on my Molly.
That works perfect.
All right.
How about Session, man? Are you still using Session or?
I
am on
still
Session.
have it. I still use it, but most people, they're sticking with their Signal. Like
I am on Session. My biggest problem with Session, at least as of now, is the accessibility. So for TalkBack users like myself, the message bodies are actually completely unread. So like I can't, unless I look visually, I can't see what people are saying to me. I have to read it visually.
See, my big thing about Session is we need a competing technology that is not built on like the main web architecture.
Oh, we're still live. I never hit the end the stream.
Nice.
You guys are getting the back room chatter here.
Yeah, but the thing about LokiNet is
the paid service for this is just a
donate to Monero Talk to get into the after hours. I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna hit the screen here, guys. Let me hit the screen. You stay talking.
All right.